Welcome everybody to the Gecko Pod, episode 85. My name is Harry at Zero's Geckos with AJD Reptiles.
Hello.
This is a part two of a popular episode we had with Don. Our last episode was with you, Don, right? It was 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago maybe. And that was episode 84. We talked about genetics and whatnot with Anthony and Jess at Little Monsters as well. So we're back at it. We finally found some time where we can hang out, chat, sync up, and provide you guys with a part two of a highly anticipated episode. So how's everyone doing? AJ, you good?
Doing good, yeah. A little
Anthony
tired.
And Jess,
but
you guys
I'm
good?
Great. We're doing great.
Awesome. And Don, how's the? Looks like the snow has melted in your your backyard.
Melted. It's cold still, but it's melted.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. So AJ, before we jump back into genetics, which we were talking about last time, we wanted to talk a little bit about Korea, the market, the hobby in Korea, and how it relates to the US, right? What are some questions we had there, AJ?
I mean, I think in general, I don't know. Did we talk about this at all last time, Harry? I can't remember. I can't remember what is like offline versus online conversation.
We really didn't in that episode, so we can dive in a little bit. And Don will give us.
Conversation was more than our online conversation.
I know that's where the lines blur when I try to think like what was actually recorded and what was not.
Yeah. So for those. To the listeners, after we recorded with Anthony and Jess and Don, the last episode, then we stayed on for another like 2 hours just chatting. So that's secret conversations. People will never hear those conversations. But
that's where Don gave us all of his secrets.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
I actually recorded it, and I'm going to put that. I'm going to post that. That'll be fine.
So Don, you're trying to cancel yourself or what? What's going on?
That's the first episode of the Don Pod. Get ready.
There you go.
The Don spin-off.
Well, I think something we can probably start with, I don't know, something that would maybe be interesting to talk about would just be kind of like cultural differences as far as approaches to the hobby. I know that when crested geckos kind of had their big rise to popularity, say in the 2012, 13, 14, 15 range, there was certain looks of geckos that had more popularity than others, specifically tricolors and harlequin animals. Do you have any reason that you think that is, Don? Like, why was that the target animal at that time?
Okay, I'm kind of like, I'm not a Korean breeder because I'm not Korean, and I'm not a U.S. breeder because I live in Korea. So I'm kind of like an island. I'm like my own little island here. But I interact with both. So when they started buying up the crested geckos, I think everybody's kind of drawn to that high white tricolor like I am.
Yeah.
High contrast.
The high contrast. But in Korea, they tend to like the extreme. So when you start taking these lilies and you start getting almost these pure white geckos, and you start taking the dark phantoms and you're getting these all black geckos, that's what they were gearing for, I think, mostly. So I think they were looking for not so much the tricolors, but they were looking at injecting more white into them to go towards that project. So I think if you look at where the Korean market is now, there's just a super lot of white. The more white, the better it is to them. And I don't really understand that, but at that time, possibly there wasn't a lot of that real extreme high white in the U.S. because you can see a marked difference between the U.S. and the Koreans, the direction that they took, and they went really fast. So I think that's what they were looking for, was just that basic white. And like Anthony was talking about before, where you have different types of white, they were looking for the paper white, I think, more than anything. That's why guys like AJ and what are some of the other ones that do a lot of the extreme paper white stuff.
Emily Burke
in the U.S., those were the hot stuff, and they're still hot too. I think there's Emily, is it Emily line, and
I think Barb has some stuff.
Barb, yeah, some of those, and that's what they're looking for. And I think they're just looking to expand that white color.
So just in general, the extremes of either end of the spectrum, those jet black phantoms, the black xanthics, the high white animals, the full coverage lilies, even like I've seen the trend of solid back lilies, which is interesting.
Solid backs were always hot, but things change. And like when the lily first came out, everybody wanted red phantoms. And the lilies I bought, they didn't have they weren't even het phantoms because I produced. I bred them with phantoms and non-phantoms, and the only thing we ever produced was non-phantoms. But everybody at that time wanted the red phantom lilies, and they were going for really high money. Now you probably can't give them away.
Interesting.
Here, anyway.
That's interesting.
So they tend to like everybody else, they tend to have certain trends, and it'll be hot, and then 6 months later you won't be able to sell one or even give it away. So yeah, you got to kind of look at the market and where it's going to be 6 months from now, and not where it is right this second.
Yeah. So with that, where do you see kind of trends moving in Korea right now?
I think it's coming back around because when I do a show, on my table I have all kinds of stuff. I mean, I like variety. When you walk around the booths, in the past you were seeing just the high whites and the dark phantoms. They kind of, as you walked around, they kind of just all blended together. You know, you kind of, where did I see that gecko? Because they all look alike. And my table kind of stood out because I never went down that road where I just strictly was concerned with producing extreme high white animals. Now I'm seeing a trend come back the other way to tricolors, and of course they're still, like everybody else, chasing the morphs. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming out in Korea right now, and we're going to cover some of that today. Things that we don't even really know what they are yet because we haven't bred them out, now crossed them and found whether it's a gene or whether it's stacking or So I think you just got to stay flexible on it, and I can't predict what it's going to be in the future.
Yeah, no, I mean it moves so fast, and that's kind of the fun and the headache of this is we have to make our breeding decisions of what we're going to be selling, say a year and a half, 2 years in advance, but then the trends move every 3 months. So it's how do you mind read and take those guesses as to what is going to be that next thing? So
it's just kind of a little bit of a roulette wheel. And
yeah. And your approach is to take more of like a wider, you're kind of throwing darts at multiple things and kind of giving yourselves more chances to hit versus saying, I'm only going to breed tricolors. I'm only going to breed super dominations.
I actually look at what's not hot, and that's what I try to do. I mean, I did it with the reds because they were hot, and then they weren't. It's just like, it's that way in reptiles in general, I think. You know, if you remember the Burmese pythons, they were expensive, they were hot, everybody wanted one, then everybody started to breed them, and because they produced so many babies, the market fell off, and you couldn't give those away, so everybody got out of them, and then the price went back up. The same thing happened for me with colubrids here. I mean, we were breeding a lot of them, and the market was down, and I sold off all my breeders, and I said, I'm going to concentrate, I'm going to cut down, I'm going to cut back. And then a year later, I mean, black Mexicans were selling for $100 and now they're selling for 300 because nobody has them.
Wow.
You just got to kind of predict what it's going to be, and I try to breed what other people are not trying to breed, because crested geckos, because they breed so much, so they produce so many babies, it doesn't take long to get caught up. But you got to kind of
you can shift mid-season if you have any changes that you see in the market, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Produce them by the next show. Well, babies anyway.
The other thing is that in the Korean market, the other thing is, I've always taken the approach that I don't care where you live, I don't care what color you are, what religion you are, what political stance you take. As far as crested geckos go, I love all crested gecko keepers and breeders. We're all one big family, but I'm seeing here lately a lot of, how can I say, kind of people becoming isolationist to a certain extent. When Korea was buying geckos from the U.S., the market was going crazy, and they were competing against each other. And there's breeders in the U.S. that have built new facilities, have really cranked up their operation, and it's all off of the backs of the money that they made from the Koreans importing their geckos.
Yeah.
And now Koreans are starting to export geckos to the U.S.
Yeah.
And a lot of U.S. breeders are like, oh my God, they're flooding the market. And that's the biggest thing, the biggest problem that I see. Either we're a gecko family or we're not. I actually saw on Instagram, I think it was, or Facebook, maybe Facebook, there's a deal on there, U.S. breeders only. They don't even let.
Yeah, I saw that. I've seen that.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of crazy, because they didn't mind selling the geckos to Korea, but now all of a sudden they think that they're flooding the market. And I even got into it with one guy on, I think it was Cappuccino chat room.
What's his name? I'm kidding.
Don't do that to Don, Harry.
But I told
Totally kidding.
everybody on that group is going to know what I'm talking about. But he bought geckos from Korea, and he's now producing geckos. And then he's talking about, well, don't buy from Korea because they breed in too small of cages. They're flooding the market. Everything was, anti-Korean. And I confronted him and said, hey, that's not the way it works. And so he kept going on and on about it. And I just told him, it's got to be. I mean, you're first of all, you're a bigot, prejudiced guy, because you're trying to categorize all Koreans as they do this. I mean, we call out U.S. breeders the same way, but all U.S. breeders aren't bad. So why are we just trying to?
You can't lump everybody into one pot. It just doesn't make any sense. Also, I understand people's point of view of saying that they're flooding the market and blah, 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 right? And it's just, it's baseless, though. The problem is they say that, and they don't really have any factual numbers on, like, the number of
how many
quantity of animals that are coming in and the quantity of animals that are leaving the U.S. and going to Korea, which is still quite much, is a lot greater than it is that's coming into the U.S. Like, I mean, I import animals, so I speak on this every time I see it in the groups, and for the most part, it's the numbers that are coming in from Korea are less than a single breeder that's new to the hobby that has maybe 80 1-to-1 pairs, which is nothing, right? We always want more and more breeders, and that's an entire country, right? An entire country is equivalent to like a single productive breeder in the U.S. They don't even outproduce my numbers, so. I'm importing less numbers than I'm producing.
And are you guys, I mean, just are you guys the main importers? I know there are a few importers into the U.S., but you guys are the main people, right? In terms of the biggest ones?
I'm not 100% sure what the other people are doing, but I know the numbers are less than us by quite a bit.
Yeah.
And there's less shipments, and the quantity of animals are less. the primary reason I do it though is there's a couple of reasons. One of them is because I know that there's been issues with other importers where there's been deaths with animals and other weird things that happen. And we prioritize the animals, number one. And number two is that if you're buying from another country and your animal arrives DOA, there's no 100% chance that you're going to get a replacement on that animal. So we take care of so much of the work and we make sure those animals arrive safe. So like, that's my number one reason for doing it, because I've been burned importing as well. So I just did it myself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But you can't say that they're flooding the market if it's just a single breeder. One breeder that has an animal.
So you're saying it's equivalent to like 1,000 animals or less a year. Is what's
it's way less than 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've never even hit that. So yeah.
Yeah. It's minimal.
Is that going off and on? My screen showing you guys blinking on and off. Is that?
Might be your internet connection then.
We see
but
you.
You look fine. You're not cutting out for us.
Do you need to adjust something? If you need to, feel free to.
No, I'm fine. It's just
okay.
It's just blinking on and off.
You're running out
of
battery.
Are you able to hear us just fine?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Make sure it's plugged in. Make sure you're plugged in so the battery doesn't run out, Don.
Yeah, it's plugged in.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
let us know if you need to do anything with it. So you had mentioned, Don, just kind of like care. I know that that's something that even I've been critical of at times with some of the things that I see in Korea. When I see a tub that's got, basically a food, a water bowl, and a lay box in it, and it's small. I've been critical of that myself, I'll admit. But what would you say is kind of the main differences as far as care that you see between the U.S. and the Korean market?
I don't breed or keep like a lot of guys do.
I know you're different.
But the way that they care for them, first of all, every shop I've ever walked into or every breeder facility I ever walked into, they were so immaculate. I mean, they're
so clean for sure.
And as far as the space goes, it works for them, and we measure that. This is a sticky subject, kind of, because you can you see those people that are bioactive, and they say, oh well, if you don't keep your animals bioactive, you don't love your animals. And you see people that keep them in plastic tubs, and you see them in glass tanks, you see them in people say the bigger the better. You have some people, one gecko in a walk-in shower sized cage, and that isn't necessarily proper care.
Yeah.
You can oversize them. You can put fake plants in there. I can go to a dumpster and pull out an old tennis shoe and a football helmet and stick it in a cage. The geckos, as long as you're feeding them proper humidity, proper temperature, proper food, then they're going to be healthy, and they're not going to say, hey, what is this tennis shoe? Because to them, their only concern is to find a place that they feel secure, that there's no stress. And once you start adding stress to an animal, then you're starting to have health problems. If an animal is reproducing and laying eggs and putting on weight and stuff, then you know that the animal is properly cared for. It's for us to say, well, that cage, you have to have this certain size cage in order for it to be healthy is not actually true. So I would say I've gotten animals imported, and I've bought animals from Korea, and as long as you know what you're looking at as far as health-wise when you buy an animal, I've not seen any unhealthy animals per se in Korea because the cages are too small. The animal during the day is sleeping anyway, and it wants to find a secure place. At nighttime, it'll come out and feed. Exercised, they're not dogs. So an animal in the wild, they say, oh, it's so huge. An animal in the wild, a crested gecko, may only in its lifetime travel 6 meters, 10 meters. If it's going to take up housing near a food source, so that it doesn't have to travel a long distance and be subject to predation. So they're as long as they have a place to hide, a location where other males and females interact and can breed, and they have a food source, that's the only thing that they're concerned about. They're not like dogs where we got to take them and get them exercised. And if anything, I'd say that overfeeding causes more problems than a smaller cage. So I'm not trying to defend the way that anybody does anything. You see that on the chat rooms all the time, where people post a picture of a cage or post a picture and it's filled with leaves and bark and everything else, and people say, well, you need to add some more hiding places for those animals.
But it's also hard to argue with results, right? Like, breeding is a good measure of whether or not the animal is healthy. So if you have high production, then usually the animal's pretty healthy, because a female will crash if she's not healthy or she's stressed or she's not able to produce, right? And so if their caging is questionable, but the health of the animal or the animal's doing really, really well, it's a whole other story, right? So animals may be really healthy, but we may be putting a little too much of personification onto them to say that, maybe they're not happy, or they need to know the difference between a old dirty shoe and a coconut hide, Don. So it might be a little much.
No, I don't believe so, because I think that I think they don't. You see both extremes. I mean, you really do. You see people post stuff and say, "What's your gecko's favorite toy?" I mean, really?
Toy?
And I think on Gecko Pod I saw somebody I think Harry said something about an ugly crested gecko, and then he got a comment saying crested geckos aren't ugly, they have souls too, and blah blah blah. And a lot of people come from all different walks of life, so we have different ways we perceive things. And if you were born in the city and you didn't, I kind of we talked about before. You said, well, tell me something about yourself. And it's like, oh, I've always had geckos and I've always had reptiles. Same thing, same spiel everybody else has put on. But when I was a young boy, probably about 10 or 11, went to my parents' camp, so I went to a campsite, and they had a nature center, and the guy that ran it was actually a science teacher for the high school. And so we started, we were collecting monarch butterflies, actually the larvae in the pupas, and we were tagging them so that we could watch, we would register it, and we would see the migration down to Mexico. And so I learned really early on. We did it later on, and a few years later, we did it with migratory game birds and stuff. So I've always been, like Anthony, and is science-based kind of guy. He loves numbers, or letters in this case. He's a little monster when it comes to genetics. But for me, my superpower is actually not finding the answers, but finding the questions to ask. So when we start talking about these things that we're going to talk about, the genetics and stuff like that, we just need to be asking the right questions. And so for us to say, this house is too small, or just like Anthony just said, there are certain things that you can tell. There's a lot of obese geckos out there that are not healthy. In fact, geckos don't breed well.
No, they don't.
But different people perceive things in a different way. And so we need to learn the animal, and if it's laying eggs and it's healthy and it's, I wouldn't say inquisitive. I even saw a thing the other day about how we're domesticating crested geckos. Crested geckos aren't, again, they aren't dogs. We're not domesticating them. Same thing with when we're
just breeding for temperament.
Yes, you're breeding for temperament. And what was that Alan talked about, breeding like to keep the tails and stuff?
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
We can manipulate Mother Nature, but
Yeah.
it's just like the gold standard in crested geckos. You know, I always had a little bit of a problem with that because the gold standard in crested geckos, in my mind, because I did have that early foundation of asking the question and finding certain things about wildlife and plants and stuff in general. But I help me out here, Anthony. As you said,
Sorry, what?
what were you talking about?
You're
See,
saying you're saying gold standard Gecko Club,
Yeah.
Oh,
and then
Yeah.
you're
my
saying the gold
thank
standard of for you
My-
is
when my brain works, like I have like 50 thoughts in there, and it's like a funnel.
Yeah.
It all gets jammed in.
No,
that's
you
how
get-
I am.
You got clogged up. Got
Take
it.
it out. Yeah. My gold standard in crested geckos is actually wild type, because Mother Nature designed them, and they've evolved over so many years. So, to me, everything after the wild type is what we perceive as being proper
Yeah.
or beautiful. And just like we were talking about the high white and the this and the that, and the care. So we kind of got a little sidetracked there, but I don't question anybody's keeping of the gecko as long as I can look at that gecko and say
And it's
that
healthy.
gecko's healthy, that it's
Mhm.
active, that it's eating good. It's everything else is just individualism.
I
Well-
think that was what. So last year at the Flora Fauna conference, there was kind of that panel discussion thing, Harry.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a question about that, and that was kind of, I think, what the bulk of the people that were kind of up there answering questions. General answer was you have to look at, are the animals that are being produced healthy, growing well, reproducing, and generally seem to be thriving. And the way that you reach that result can be very different for different people.
Yeah.
So that
And to be
could,
critical.
for you, if you live in a certain environment, that might be bioactive. If you live in a low humidity environment or whatever it may be, that might be the case. Or it might be plastic tubs, or it might be, a rack system, or, any of these things. So it just comes down to, I guess, like you're saying, like making animals that are healthy, happy, reproducing, and thriving.
And understanding what they are. I mean,
Yeah.
at the basic level, at the mother's nature intended, and then for us to adapt, and we don't need to say, oh, this is right or this is wrong, as long as, like you just said, the animal is healthy. And one thing I would say, though, that, and I have heard this, a lot of people in Korea like to hand feed
Yeah.
their geckos. And so when they're exported to the U.S., they'll say, "Oh, my gecko's not eating," because it's not programmed to
Eat out of the
feed.
dish.
Yeah. So geckos aren't. I mean, they say they're stupid, but they won't starve themselves to death. And it's simply a matter of patience. And it isn't. I see so much controversy about food, about what's the best food. My gecko won't touch this. My gecko won't touch that. I guarantee if you take that gecko and you take the food that they say it won't touch, and you only feed that food, that gecko's not going to starve itself. It's going to eat that food eventually. It may take a week. It may take 2 weeks. I don't know, but it's going to start to eat that food. And once it does, then it's used to it. It's just like a little kid that you give them a new food and they're like, I don't know if I want to eat this. But once they try it, they'll eat it. So, and if it takes dabbing a little bit on their nose, getting them to lick it, and then they'll start eating it. So,
I think that's a big thing. And this is we're going to have a food episode at some point. I know. Yeah, soon. But I see a big, then we'll pivot off of this here.
Put her in. She's got a lot of things to say about food.
So all the foods right now, anytime there's a new food that comes out, the number one way that people judge it is they feed it one time and then they go, did the geckos eat it? If they did, it's a good food, first feeding. If they didn't, it's a bad food.
Interesting.
And I am not of that camp. But I think that's like you're saying, Don, like they'll eat the diet. They're not like a dog. They're not going to starve themselves, you know, or even a person. Like you get hungry enough, you don't like a certain food, you're going to eat it.
True.
So at least, and that's not saying that we're trying to force food on geckos that they just hate because we want them to eat it. But I think that they do become, if you eat ice cream every day and then suddenly somebody offers you a salad or offers you something that's not quite as appetizing on first taste, yeah, you're not gonna clean the bowl.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's bad for you. So what do you think, Jess? What do you think about that?
I think a lot has to do with they get set in their ways. So some people are feeding something very like fruity, and then they'll go to something that's more like a insect based, or it smells more like insecty.
Yeah.
And then they have trouble switching back and forth. I feel like that happens a lot where the geckos have been just eating something fruity for a long time, and then they don't want to switch to something buggy.
Yeah.
But when they've eaten like a mixture of the bug, they eat fruits, they eat bug and fruit mix, then we haven't had trouble like switching any flavors
Yeah, we change it up a lot.
all the time.
We have so many different flavors in our facility. It's ridiculous. I can't even keep track sometimes.
And protein source too, because different protein sources have different flavor. They have a different smell to them.
We always get the yearly things from Rapashi.
Yeah,
So-
like the
seasonal
seasonals.
The seasonal. Yeah,
Yeah.
we get all the seasonal stuff, So we just try to make sure that no matter where our geckos end up, they're going to eat food.
Yeah,
period.
for sure.
And that may
That's why
not be
weird zoom ed stuff.
And the protein
that may
source
not be a
is-
Korean thing so much as it's that's true. I think for everybody, like Anthony just said, my feedings every single time is different. I'll add something one time.
Keep them on their toes.
Yeah, and so I don't think I've ever had anybody have a problem saying that their gecko wouldn't eat. But I know if you're feeding the same food, or you're like Koreans like to hand feed, and they get used to something, then once you change it, I mean, they're going to go off food anyway once they change it. If you can move a gecko from one cage to a different style cage, and it'll go off food likely for, maybe up to a week, because it's a new habit, new environment for them, and they're not quite used to it.
like an adjustment period. But they go back to eating just as long as they're not stressed, and they'll find their food source. So even Korea, like hand feeding their geckos, eventually they're just going to be like, oh, I have to just find it myself. I haven't had any problem.
I think actually in Korea that they're actually getting a little bit away from the hand feeding so much, especially
It takes forever.
I don't know how anyone has time for that. Does the average gecko breeder have like 4 full-time employees just cleaning cages? And
Actually, a lot of them do.
How
Yeah,
do they pay their bills?
Yeah.
With a storefront and everything.
I know.
It's
So
marketing.
Don, that is a question I always wondered. Like as you guys were chatting, I was thinking about like you guys we talked a little bit about this offline last time. Like we talked about Korea. A lot of Korean breeders have teams, and like what is the benefit of having teams? I know America is very individualistic. Our culture is very different. Like we're just very hyper individualistic, autonomous. We kind of shy away from teams if possible. How does it benefit Korean breeders to group up like that? And how much backstabbing is there?
It's always, partnership. I don't care if you're family or non-family, partnerships are difficult, especially when finance is involved. So most of these teams are not set up like that. They simply do it for the benefit of the reptile shows.
Okay.
I think mainly, and camaraderie. A lot of them live close to each other, so they get together and whatnot. But when they buy tables, usually you'll get a discount depending on how many tables that you get. It's like 2 tables is X amount, and then everyone over that is at a slight discount. So they'll get together as a team and get tables as a team.
So it's more like when they're vending.
That different from like the U.S. It's just that in Korea, they kind of like advertise it as a team more than
Versus
anything,
we would
right?
do it at like we did that at the whatever
Anaheim,
it was,
right?
the Anaheim show, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it was just me,
Promoter show.
AJ, a couple other people, and
Yeah, there's
It's
like
we were
just a little more
team.
organic,
there's like
I guess.
4
in
or
the
5
US.
of us in a booth. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Jess and
Right.
Anthony, you guys have like
You have like a little team too.
you have like 3 or 4
Oh,
people
yeah.
back there.
Yeah, sure.
Is it like that?
Technically.
Is it
I mean,
kind
the
of like
difference
that?
is that we own the entire booth.
Yeah.
So you guys are team
what
little
happened with
monsters.
us- Yeah, what happened with
Yeah,
us
exactly. It's a little different, but yeah, it's similar.
is
We're
that
team zeros.
instead of paying our volunteers, we kind of like allow them to, you know what, like just vend the show with us. So they help us
Mhm.
with their booth, and then in turn we give them
Booth
like
space.
booth space, and
Mm.
it's
Yeah,
been
they can
working
bring
out
their
really
animal.
well because we all like it's just been so much easier for everyone,
Yeah.
especially like
Yeah.
some people that never vended before but they want to volunteer. So then they come to our booth, they volunteer, they learn how to do it, but they don't have enough to like do their own show. So they
Mhm.
continue to volunteer with us, and then like they'll just use a portion of our table for something that they want to sell.
Yeah.
That's how it
There's good
started.
things. There's good reasons to do it in camaraderie. Do they even
Absolutely.
have? Do they have herpetology or herpetoculture societies anymore? Is it reptile societies?
I think
Yeah.
they do up here
There
in
is.
NorCal. There is, at least I know they have like a group of them up here.
Before the internet, that's all we did. That's all we had. We did
Yeah.
everything as a group, and we would
Yeah.
go to West Texas and hunt Alterna, and everybody would go out on the road and collect stuff and then bring it back and show. And if somebody wanted it, then that's fine. And if not, we release it and stuff. And the internet has taken, I think, the place of a lot of that personal one-on-one. But here in Korea, they make teams, and I think it's more social than it is financial.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting, just the dynamic. Yeah, it's much more individualistic in the US. And then obviously a big difference between Korea and the US is the fact that you just have such a concentration of the hobby in such a small space. Like you have more there is more animals in the country of South Korea probably than there are in the United States as far as crested geckos or it's got to be
Per square
close.
mile.
I mean,
And
yeah,
then
and it's in
per
a
kilometer.
space. What is the total population?
That's like
of
the
Korea?
size of Southern California.
I mean,
we're going to do a show in Busan in a couple of weeks, so that's probably one of the furthest shows we do, and it takes us about 5.5, 6 hours to get there.
So yeah, all of South Korea is probably smaller than Florida.
New York to California is like a 3-day trip.
Yeah.
And I think it's crazy how many geckos Korea produces, at least from the perspective of what we see. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems like there's a lot more geckos available.
They're still importing, and see that's why a lot of the guys that are saying, "Oh well, don't buy from Korea, buy from the U.S." They're missing out because Korea's a huge market, and if you're producing quality and you're producing the stuff that they want, they're going to import, and they do it. And I think AJ, you got guys chasing you still from Korea, right?
Yeah, some for sure.
So I think we need to, as a community, we need to understand that we're all in it together.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
And personally, I want to see a global community and a global market. That's my end goal.
I mean, we've seen some of that even still between we still see buying and selling between Europe and Czech Republic and Germany and all over the place, Denmark. And
the whole key is, AJ, is that if people are producing, I don't want to say wholesale geckos, but if they're not producing the quality of geckos that people desire, then they're not going to sell to Korea, and they're not going to sell probably even to the U.S. And they start having problems, and they start getting frustrated, and people aren't chasing their stuff down. But the people that work hard and produce the stuff that people want, there's always going to be a market, whether it's in Korea, U.S., Europe, or otherwise. And so people need to stop blaming entire countries or groups of people and start looking inward and saying, maybe I need to step my game up.
I think that's a good point.
So
I like that.
Focus
So are
on
we
quality.
forming a global team right here?
Yeah.
This is it.
Okay.
We're forming a global team. We have to reach out to the UK, to whatever. We have to gather everybody.
We got East Coast, West Coast, far West Coast.
Far.
Yeah, you guys heard it here first. Oh no, we lost Anthony and Jess.
We'll
The
get him
video.
back. We'll get him back.
Yeah, that's interesting, Don. Yeah, it's good to hear. Good to hear kind of at least your conviction to kind of bridge the gap. So it's not just us versus them, right? But it's like, how can we continue to further the projects? And also, I think Korea has done such a good job in this short amount of time to develop some really nice animals.
I don't think anybody can criticize. I mean, you can criticize the cages and the keeping or whatever if that's really what you need to do. But as far as quality goes, I can see a marked difference. But when Koreans were importing, you got to remember they were importing the best they could get.
Yeah, they were buying us all out of our nicest animals for the highest dollar.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, like even if you go to Feudal right now, you can see Zengex whatever line or Barb line or Emily line, or so these guys were buying like top shelf stuff for like 20, 30K, like for top breeders, like earlier on, right? A few years ago, and now they're producing like amazing stuff. And so it's, I don't know.
America took the payday to take the back seat.
Yeah. But I also think that, America is just like so into their own groups that we don't really share with each other on that level, right?
Yeah.
But also Korea was willing to pay the premium that Americans wouldn't pay to each other for those things, right? So
yeah.
So I don't know.
But like Don said, Korea is still buying. Like we not only import, but we export too. So geckos are leaving.
Yeah, for sure.
Just got to focus on quality.
And also just building those relationships too.
Yes.
With the Korean buyers in the Korean market too.
The problem is that the cost is a little bit prohibitive. Export and import cost is a little bit tough, but I always tell people when the caps was hot and everybody wanted caps from me, and people were actually getting angry because I said I don't export. But why don't you go see Janine over at Treehouse, or why don't you go see Omni, and why don't you this and that? So I've never felt that there was borders per se. But if you find a gecko that is, they say, why is Korea selling geckos so cheap? There's a lot of geckos here in Korea, and there's a lot of small breeders that work out of their mama's house that don't have overhead, that just kind of do it as a hobby, and they're just selling cheap geckos. And so it is the market over here, but there's also a cost to be incurred when people from the U.S. look over here and say, well, it's a $50 gecko. Well, that $50 gecko, by the time it hits the U.S., is now a $250 gecko or whatever, right? So it's also a comparison as far as what can I buy this gecko for in the U.S. and what will it actually cost me to have it landed. And so just because they're selling over here cheap, unless you want to, even if you jump on a plane and you come over here and you buy a bunch of them,
you can't bring them back
over there. I mean, you can't bring them back. You got to have them exported, so you're still going to have that extra cost. So there's going to be, I think, because there's so many geckos, the prices are lower in Korea than they are in the U.S. But for a U.S. person, it's not actually lower. And so when I price my geckos, I look at I look at two things. I look at the market over here, but I also look at what is it going to cost to land it in the U.S. And is anybody even going to be interested in it? Because if it's twice as much as what they can buy the same gecko for in the U.S., then they're not going to buy my gecko. And I've never been a marketer. I don't care about marketing my geckos. People got to beg me to put stuff on Fetal, and then when I do, I put it on my Instagram. I just loaded up 10 geckos to Fetal, and I feel like I'm a used car salesman sometimes. You know what I mean? I'm not comfortable with the marketing. some people are really good marketers and some people are really good breeders. You find very few people that are both good at both. I mean, you guys, all three of you, four of you, do well because you produce quality animals and you market it without cheapening the whole hobby. You know what I mean? You're not the used car salesman out there. And to me, that's, you can go overboard on the marketing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's really good insight. I think that's helpful to hear. That kind of answers a bit of the question of like, oh, how come geckos are so cheap there? And people complain about that, and so that's really good insight, Don. Yeah, really.
I think the further that we can go on, trying to have that conversation of not making it like, us versus them or that, but trying to I like just listening to what you're saying, Don, is just, it's really cool to just kind of hear your point of view on it, and I don't know, I'm just going to think more about that too. Just how can we make like the global gecko community stronger?
Because strength is in numbers, and so if it's us versus them,
and collaboration too.
Yeah,
and cooperation.
We do that all the time. Anthony and I, we do that, and I didn't really know you guys before, but I'm sure we're going to do it in the future because I send geckos to people in the U.S. Not collaboration. I just give them the gecko because I want them to like Anthony with what we're going to talk about with the greens and stuff here. He's better at that kind of stuff to kind of figure out what's going on than I am. Anthony always jokes with me. He said, I probably got like 50 new morphs in my building. And I may have, but I'm not a morph chaser per se. And he's much better at figuring that stuff out. So when we start sharing information and geckos and collaborating on stuff, we're better off for it.
100%. That's my favorite thing. Collaborating with friends that you have common interests in, working on projects together, sharing information.
The problem is jealousy. People get jealous, and there's no reason to be jealous. We're all in this together. And
we always share what we find.
Maybe a little too much sometimes, but yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, Cappuccino came out. I didn't even hesitate. I was like, okay, and it's not just showing. I didn't just show the super form, say, oh, I got a new morph. I showed the breeders. I showed the babies in comparison, comparing them to each other. And a lot of these guys that are coming out with new morphs and stuff, they're not even sharing what the babies look like in comparison, and that's really important.
Yeah,
I agree.
And the siblings too, like all the siblings.
Yeah, sharing information is what we need to do with each other.
Part of it, though, I think, Don, is I think there's such a huge cancel culture of like, oh, you guys line bred this, or like, and so people are afraid to share information because you have these naysayers that are always out to get people, and I think that really scares people.
That's where we as a community need to squelch that. We need to push back. People are afraid to call people out. And I think we need to do more of it. And it's the only way
more of calling people out for improper calling people out.
Let's call people out for calling people out for calling people out for calling people out.
There you go.
I mean, we're calling people out on the size of their cage, but we're not. It's the same thing with the gold standard of geckos. It also could be a gold standard of the way we treat each other and the way that we conduct ourselves. And there is because people get out there and say crazy stuff that isn't true, and we need to squelch that. We need to push back.
I think it is hard because there is within the hobby. I don't know if it's the same in Korea, Don, but there's a lot of like divisions and factions, and and I think that makes it difficult and causes people to kind of freeze up. So you essentially keep to yourself and you just work on your stuff. And so there's a lot of the American culture definitely lends itself to that as well, because
I think
we're hyper individualistic. So
it's the internet, because most people wouldn't say half the things they say if they were. person.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
true.
So that's just the internet's super great because we can share information across the world, split instant, and it's also bad because people can say whatever the hell they want.
And they'll hide behind
Yeah.
hide behind the internet, hide behind their keyboard.
Yeah.
Which is too bad, but you got to take the good with the bad, I guess.
Yeah. So no, that's good.
Yeah.
Good conversations. I think we could keep talking about that as well. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit as well. But let's touch a little bit, as a segue. You mentioned kind of the green stuff, right?
Yeah.
Anthony, you just want to talk about the green stuff?
Can we do one thing before that?
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Remember, Anthony, we were talking? We left a few things on the table last time.
Yeah.
What was it, Anthony? Super Sable, right?
We were looking at Sable, Super Sable, and Luwak at the end, and Super Caps.
So we left something on the table where EJ had asked me, what do I think it is? And I said, well, I think it's a genetic mutation. And I had a couple people write me and ask, why is that? When I was talking to Anthony, if the two things with white pattern and genetic mutation, if it was just white pattern, we would, just like when you add white pattern to any phenotype, you're going to get variations in the babies. You're going to get variations in what the babies look like. Some will have low white, some will have high white, some will look like the parents. If it was just the addition of high white, the Super Sable should show some variation, including some babies that look like super caps.
100% right.
That would make sense, right?
It would have to by this point.
We're not seeing that. We're seeing now. That's why we thought, well, okay, so it's not just the addition of white. Now, there's two things I would say on that. The lily white, when we add it to the super cap, is very distinct and uniform. So lily white is a gene that we're adding. So if we're adding white pattern, it could be a specific, what was it, Anthony? You were talking about white pattern mutations, different types
a specific
of
type of white pattern gene.
Yeah, so it could be a specific type of white pattern. So we're not really answering the question, is to be determined. Some people are trying to reverse engineer it and say, take these high white pattern cappuccinos and breed them together and see if you get a super sable looking animal.
Sable, right?
Yeah.
But that hasn't been done because of the problems with the super cappuccino.
Well, it's been attempted, but we haven't produced the Super Sable from it.
Right.
It hasn't been able to be created.
It's the same thing when you do. Yeah, it's the same thing when you do a frap to another cap, right? You produce super caps and you produce super cap lily, Sorok.
Right.
And so that separation is what we should have seen if you breed two sable together. We should have seen, if it was just the addition of white, then we should have seen super caps and super sables.
Because you get ones that separated from the white pattern.
But we've never produced that one separate gene of super cap and super sable by just pairing two sables together. And so I even went through all of the results and all the data from the four breeders that shared all their information. I looked at all their Excel sheets, and I'm like, genetically speaking, it's not possible for you to not have produced a super cap yet. And I picked out all the pairings, and I said, I need to see all the offspring from all of these pairings first before I even think about writing an article about this. And as you know, Don, you've been part of some of my articles. They're pretty comprehensive. It takes months and months and months. I mean, some of these articles are just on a single gene or characteristic that take longer than some people have written whole books on. So, I take a lot of time to sort through the data, and I was pretty sure that what we were looking at was the first allelic mutation that we could see in the hobby.
And so but even if I can't remember, today I was just looking, somebody just produced a super sable, but they produced it by a super sable lily. But the lily was one of those extreme white that we were talking about, the extreme white lilies.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So there was a little bit of difference in that, but you could see the kind of the addition of the white, but it was still so typical of the super sable and the super sable lily. So
Gotcha.
you're going to get some variation there, but the patterning, if it was just the addition of white, then it probably we would see more variation in it, and we would see, varying degrees, not just the addition of white, but in the patterning itself on the dorsal.
Right. I saw one super sable recently that had like orange coloration on it too. It was the first time I'd seen that.
Orange.
Do you know who it was? We can pull it up. You remember?
No.
It was a sable lily or a super sable lily?
No, it was a super sable. Just a super sable, not a super sable lily.
Was it orange flecking? Or was it like orange tinge?
It was like flecking, but also kind of a weird tinge. But yeah, I saw that recently, not too long ago, and I thought, oh, that's an
Did they
interesting
say it was a new morph?
change. No, it wasn't. They weren't saying that. They said it was just a super sable.
I'm just kidding. I was thinking about that before, where people are always coming out saying it's a new morph, it's a new morph. And you say, well, why is it a new morph? And it's like, it just looks different. If that was the basis of it, just looks different than those, remember the orange ones that we talked about in the first episode?
Yeah.
I could have just come out and said, that's a new morph too.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have 40 different lily white lines too.
But what says it isn't different is the homozygous form.
Yeah.
It's just regular super cap. So a lot of these guys that are saying that, and then they're saying that they don't want to prove it out because they don't want to produce supers or something. I don't know. I mean, you can't say something is a new morph without proving it out.
And without actually doing that work.
The sable
it is hard.
The sable and the super sable is the proof that the proof is in the pudding, I guess. But,
yeah.
So I just want to touch base on that. That's why we think that. So I'm ready for greens if you are.
Let's do it.
Greens.
Mr. Grinch.
Look at the Mr. Grinch project. It's one of our favorites.
Let's do it.
That name is from Jessica, right?
Yep. She's
So what is the origin of this? Like, what's the story on it?
Oh, what, me? Okay.
Yeah, you.
Either of you. I don't know anything about this. I know zero about this.
This is the first time I've heard of it.
So,
last time.
Actually, Mr. Grinch is the reason that I'm even here on this Gecko Pod. Because Anthony was in Spain, so I was talking with my dog, my stepdaughter or whatever, Jessica there, while he was over in Spain, and we were talking about Mr. Grinch and what's going on with it and this and that, and I said, we should really do the Gecko Pod and try to talk about some of this cappuccino stuff that's going on, and it went radio silent for like 5 minutes, and then Jessica come back on and said, okay. And I was like, okay, what? Like, we're set for the Gecko Pod. And I had canceled on you guys like, about a year before. I said, let's do the Gecko Pod. And then I was looking at all this stuff going on with the internet and the chat rooms and stuff. And I said, I don't need that stuff. So as soon as Jessica told me that, I was like, oh shit, how am I going to get out of this?
You're stuck.
I don't even remember. Jess, what did you do? Did you basically like talk to Don and then you sent one message to us and we were just like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
That's all it took. Yeah.
Just was like, all right, Don's ready. And then we're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
It was like less than 5 minutes. So here, so anyway, it came from the obsidian. So my friend Janine at Treehouse does the tuxedo line.
Yeah.
And I had set up, I think in the first episode, you can see where I set up some dark phantoms. And I came, after the first season, I came to the conclusion that it was very difficult for me to identify the cap gene with the animals that I was using anyway. So I made, it's not a line, it's just, I named it Obsidian, so that when I marketed it, when I went to the shows, they could say, well, what's an Obsidian? I'll say the sire was a cap, and the dam was a dark phantom. And I can't tell if it's a cap or not a cap. So you're buying it. I hate to use...
Treat it as if it is a cap.
Yeah.
I hate to use the word possible. You know, all these people selling possible caps and stuff. So that was my way of going around and being able to explain to people. So these all came out of the Obsidian line. Now some of them were very dark, and some of them, I guess I'll let Anthony take from here, but I guess yellow base. And some of them also came out of when we bred the following year, we bred the caps to the yellow. So some of them came out of the yellow.
So are these caps? Are these all caps?
To be
We're
determined.
breeding them right now to know for sure. But this is the project basically outlined. The cool thing about it is that, like, you can see that animal right there is basically misfired. So you've got portions of it fired up and portions fired down. And you can see it's green all the way through. Where, like, you know, we have other animals that have been green in the past as well in our collection. One of Jessica's first crested geckos was actually a really nice green gecko. And you know, it depends on how you define green, right? So we've seen a variation of green in the hobby where it's fired down green like an olive, or it's fired up green as an olive, right? And then otherwise it's usually black or it's usually gray. But there are a subset of few animals that are green through and through, fired down, fired up. This is one of them. So you know, ours passed away and he had a hemipene prolapse and he had an issue with one of them that what is it? It got plugged up. Anyways, he bred a Ira.
Yeah, he was like 19.
Yeah, he's 19 when
20.
he passed away. But he didn't pass away from the hemipene thing. That was just our issues in trying to breed him and reproduce the result of green. So he was just as green as Mr. Grinch, except he had pinstriping that was like yellow tinged in color. And so you know, finally when Dawn had that project, I was like, I would love to work on this. And so it's one of the things that we've wanted to put in foundation genetics, but we haven't had enough samples to really do it. We've only had a subset of a few samples, and I just don't agree with putting something into the book or that is already quite scientific and has a ton of research in it, and then kind of masking in one of the projects that didn't, in my opinion, have enough data to really put into it. So
yeah, you'll do your due diligence on it like everything else.
Yeah, so this one's going to take a little bit of time. We already have the project running, and so, you know, we're going to see what the results are, and then after that, we're going to outcross everything. We're going to do it just like we did with everything else in the book. We're not going to intercross. We're going to do all outcrosses, see if we get the phenotype that we need before we have to intercross if we're not getting the phenotype to reproduce properly.
All right.
So
Is this animal from Dawn?
Yes.
What's that?
Okay.
Don, could you take us back? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go.
I was just going to ask, could you take us back again? So you said, so this was Obsidian Project. So basically it was Dark Phantom Cap bred to Dark Phantom.
Yes.
And so this was an offspring that came out of basically double Dark Phantoms, one that was Cap.
Yes.
And then these came out.
Yeah. And so what I did with the Obsidians, when the babies hatched, I looked at it and said, this is definitely not Cap.
Okay.
If it was a possible Cap, and some of them were, you know, you had variations in there. You're like, oh, maybe 50-50, maybe 90%. But I just stuck it all under Obsidians, and then I marketed them as Obsidians. Now, as they grew, a lot of them started, not a lot of them, but there wasn't that many, but a few started turning this green. Now, if you go over on the slide there, you see, and I was going to ask Anthony, are you going to breed, are you planning on breeding to a Cap? To prove whether it's a Cap?
I'm bringing the greens together.
I think you should breed to a Cap.
Right now we're gonna we do have caps that we're gonna pair to, but we also have we have one female that's a super soft scale that she's green in color as well.
The only reason I say that, Anthony, is because it would be nice to know whether or not that actually it's the Cap gene that's involved in here. Because if you look,
you make a super.
If you look at one more, not see the red mushroom, that one. Now that's a green. That's what. No, next one over. Yeah, that's the typical what we call old school green or olive or whatever you want to call it. This has nothing to do with the Cap. And so the next slide over is the close up of those scalations. You can see the difference. Is it soft scale? No, this is lateral. That's a lateral. So it's not soft scale. The next one over is a Mr. Grinch obsidian. So you can see the difference. It's more where the coloring is more
sporadic.
mixed. Yeah, it's like stirred up. Where
That's
the other
cool.
one is,
I like that.
Intermingled. So there is a marked difference between, in my opinion, there's a marked difference between the old school olive or green. And
there's a definite difference between different types of greens that we see in the hobby, which is what I was mentioning, the fired up and down versions. And
that's what Jessica and I was talking about, because if you look, it's mixed, but it's still, you can still see the influence that the yellow is causing with the cappuccino. If it is even a cappuccino, we need to prove that out.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, so Jess, you were going to say something earlier.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Mr. Grinch is that he's got like red cheeks, like under like his throat and stuff. And then also too, like if you look really closely at his scales, sometimes they look like a tinge of black and a tinge of red, but it's always green. It's just kind of like interweaved in there. So it looks like, you know how sometimes like red can be mixed in, like instead of just being a red base, it can kind of like interact with different base colors.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about Mr. Grinch is he having that interaction between like a black and a red, where instead of having black or red, it's creating a green. Like, are the two base colors interacting together? Kind of like strawberry blonde, where it's like the two colors.
Yeah, yellow and dark.
Mm-hmm.
Almost in a codominant way.
Yeah.
When you've got blushing on his chin.
You can see the fired and unfired, so it's green. No matter what.
Yeah.
This is going to be the fun part of breeding these. We're going to breed them eventually we'll breed it in a recessive manner. Right now we're going to breed it as a codominant, incomplete dominant manner, which is basically dominant from the get-go. And then we're going to see how those self-segregate. As those genes self-segregate, we'll know what the interaction could be. And then can you bring them back together using non-related animals in the same way is another interesting thing too.
What's the next one over to the left? No, the other way. Well, even that one you can see. The good thing about the good thing about the Mr. Grinch is a lot of the ones that I got from that, because they were the dark phantom or whatever, there was some Dalmatian spotting. It was pretty normal to have Dalmatian spotting, and what I like is this is a pretty clean animal with a nice head, I think. That's the females I sent them now, because they said they had the project going, but they were looking at getting some that were also from the obsidians. So you can see this female has spots, stuff. And I picked out the best we had. I think, how many did you get, Jessica? 2 females?
2 females, yeah. But we have a obsidian female, like a black base, like dark base.
So we have like 4
other
animals that we can cross out to, no problem.
That's even cooler. Yeah.
Did you guys just start this last season? This season,
and we do have the animals that we've bred from like obsidian stuff as well. And then we have the blacks from Gecko Kai, Brian.
Yes. So we have black
and
and see how that works with those too.
There's only, I think in the U.S. there's only one other breeder that I sent greens to. I don't know if you remember them, Jessica, when you got them. Or even who, I don't even know.
And it starts with a B.
So they're one of the few that have that.
No, there is a girl that got one imported, and it was really green. I remember seeing it come through.
Yeah,
I remember he was wanting to do the project, but I don't remember who it was and whatnot. But yeah, it's a cool project, and unfortunately,
she messaged you about the green project too, so it's in our Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, that green stuff's cool. I like that. I mean,
cool.
I can't appreciate it fully because of my color blindness, but I can definitely tell that they look different than other things that I see.
But Mr. Grinch is always green. Like that misfire, like that's him. That's his fired up, fired down. That's what it looks like all the time.
That's cool. Awesome.
He's prone to misfire.
And I know that in the past years, there were people that were on board with working the green project, and it seemed like it was either a dead end or disappointing and stuff. But I think that this stands to have a little bit more chance of being, because even those close-ups of the scales, you can see that there is a marked difference. And so if we can start taking that and then outbreeding it to different stuff and getting different results, it could mean a whole different bunch of colors on our crested gecko palette.
Yeah,
That's cool.
that's really
It's the
cool.
avocado
It's
Grinch
such
project.
a pretty green.
It's avocado toast.
Avocado toast. Yeah.
That's what the Californians would call this.
Yali.
Any other questions on them?
Yeah, I mean, so you guys are gonna do all. Are you keeping it all Phantom? Or are you gonna cross it to? I know there was.
No, we're
one...
gonna outcross it as well.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
already
so we
know.
have like soft scale, non-phantoms
cool.
that have like a green tinge, and we
I
want to
guess
see
you have a
how
couple
that
that aren't
interacts with
Phantoms
them.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This one is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
I like this one.
that's
Really
a cool
pretty.
animal too.
That one did not come out of the obsidian. That came out of the outcross to the yellows that we had.
I mean, you can see the yellow tint underneath
Yeah.
on that one quite a bit. You know,
Yeah.
look at the
Like
belly,
neon.
the chin, and everything. You know, it's got that neon yellow on it.
And that he's got the green chin instead of the red chin like Mr. Grinch.
Yeah, exactly.
There's like an
Or maybe
interaction
it may
of
get
like, the
different
colors
results.
instead of
Hmm.
instead of blending, or you can see it.
Yeah, the chromatophore is pretty complex for sure.
But we're really excited about this one. I can't wait to see the babies.
I know, right?
That's cool.
All right, what do we got next?
Yeah, actually,
next?
Don, when these hatch, do you remember what they look like as babies?
Probably dark.
Like hatchlings?
Darker type, dark. You talking about in general? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the greens, yeah.
Yeah, there were just dark phantom looking babies with, and then I looked at the base of the tail and the white, and then I decided whether, but they didn't. I may have some pictures I can try to dig up and see if there's any hint of green, but I think they were just basically a black base.
Cool.
All right, I'm excited. Let's get to the next thing. Are we going to? I want to see this. New stuff. Are we going Pied Foot, or Don? Are you going to kind of intro us into kind of what your thought is on some of this stuff?
Yeah, Don, what do you want to talk about next?
We can go right down the line. We don't have that much on the cap Kingpin. We can just briefly touch.
Let's do that.
Because my friend over at Elite in England, is that right, Anthony?
Yep.
Yeah. So she bought a couple of caps from me, and had I even thought about it, I'd try to influence her into buying an orange instead of the dark, but they went with the dark caps, and they bred them into their Kingpin project. And Anthony, you were talking to him. Maybe you can. The third. Okay, so this was my cap, dark cap that they bred to this Kingpin. And if anybody's not familiar with the Kingpin, it's basically Anthony.
Yeah. It's a gene that they're working on. They're still proving out all the data and everything. I don't think they've released any yet. So they're still working on kind of coming up with the consensus of what the inheritance and everything is. But yeah, they bred it to that cap.
I thought they said it was incomplete dominant. I thought they made a super form, or what they claim to be.
Right. And I'm not sure if they've fully concluded that or not, but that is the latest thing, is that they said it was incomplete.
Okay.
So when they bred those two, that third baby came out. It's more cap. I mean, it looks cap. And then the fourth baby, I know that they posted it, and there was people on that Cappuccino gene going, "That's not a cap. That's not a cap." But again,
it looks like a cap to me.
Want to jaw jack and say that they know something from based on a picture. It's to be determined as well. But if that is a cap, then it's going to be a pretty awesome project, I think. Even the third one, where it's more identifiable as a cap, is quite interesting looking.
Yeah.
Bring something to the table.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's adding a ton of pattern immediately from the first generation for sure.
So that's interesting, and so that's going to be. I just wanted to mention that because we're talking about caps and how they interact with different phenotypes and different projects. So a shout out to Elite if you you guys don't follow them because they're going to have some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
They
That's
said
very
they're
cool.
working on more photos, right?
Yeah,
They're
I was trying to get some of the original photos from them. But yeah, they're still working on it, so they're slammed and busy. I'm sure people are messaging them every day.
And hopefully they won't release any for a while until they figure it out. Because once you release stuff, this is anybody that's coming out with a new morph. Once you release it, you lose control of it. And I hope that they keep it intact until at least they can figure it out. Maybe stockpile about 3,000 of them. So
exactly.
People always want to jump the gun though and start releasing them, and then you lose control of it.
Are you looking for dog pictures?
Okay, so now,
I just
now
just
we
went
can
on
go
my
to
That's
list.
Camaro hair. You're distracted. Quit looking for pictures of dogs.
I
Go back.
say it's just out of nowhere. It's a picture of a sky. It's beautiful.
We should make
It's like
a hot pink
two random
gecko.
pictures.
No puppies in here.
I bet you we could find one.
No.
All right, let's focus.
Let's go.
Distracted.
All right, what do we
here.
got next?
We're back.
We got
We're back.
Pinky next.
Oh, pinkies.
Oh, pinkies. All right, let's roll the pinkies.
The gecko formerly known as.
This will be fun. Yeah, I crossed that out, and I'll tell you why. Because
It's not a genetic hypo.
not a genetic hypo anyway. Anymore, but I wanted to show. So I know that I have had the pinky in my collection for several years, and so I didn't try to produce any. Even early on with the cappuccino gene, I was more interested in learning about what the cap gene was doing and outcrossing the stuff. So I took a lot of the cap to cap pairings because like Altitude did a thing about, I want to add Dalmatian spots to the super caps and whatever. That was actually done right away. There was already Dalmatian spots on there, but once we realized the problems with the super cap, I stopped. Even before that, I stopped breeding cap to cap because I was more interested in what the gene was and outcrossing them. With the pinky, I felt the same way. It was a reduced head structure. It does appear to be healthy, but it didn't do anything for me, so I wasn't really chasing it. And so and there wasn't a lot of information put out by the people that were working with it in what it looked like in the heterozygous form. If you remember with the cap gene, I showed pictures on my Instagram all the time. This is the cap, this is the non-cap sibling, and people could compare it. Now they're just saying, well, the single form, the single gene kind of looks, what do they say?
Like grayish, hypo-ish.
Yeah, hypo-ish or whatever. So they're saying, so I didn't really chase it until I put a picture of a red one on. Now, the reason I know it's in my collection is because all these that we're going to show came from me. And they were all caps. So that's why I included it in this, because it's kind of cap related. So we know that cappuccino gene, at least most of them, or the majority of the caps, came out of Mac. And Mac never came out. Mac uses cappuccino as the name, but they didn't name it. Obviously, I called it the cappuccino, and now they're selling them. But I think maybe that this is just based on the size of the breeder. I suspect that probably what was happening with Mac was that they were popping out these black-looking geckos, and they didn't know where they came from. They didn't know how to identify the het form, so they were growing them up because there's pictures dating back to like 2019 of adult super cap.
Adult. So they would have made them.
Yeah. So
way
so they were probably just planning on growing them up and breeding them, and they never did come out and say that there was a problem with them or anything like that. But then they started selling Cappuccinos. I understand that there's also pictures of white geckos that were amongst those with the super. So I suspect that it came out of Mac. Well, we know it came out of Mac, the originals. But nobody ever identified what the heterozygous form looked like. So when I bred the reds, outcrossed the caps to the reds, I suspect that was actually a hypocap, because the people that are buying reds and caps from me are producing, if you go back over, Harry, they're producing these pinky looking animals. So the very first picture is one that popped out of the egg for me, and that was in 2022, all the way over to
the beginning area.
All the way left. Right here.
One more. Okay. So that was in August of 2022. I popped that out, and I put it on my Instagram, and people were saying, well, the last thing that a baby does in the egg is develop its color. But I knew I've made enough babies. I understand the difference between a preemie and a what this was, and this was in fact pinky. I'm pretty sure. Of course, it was dead in egg, and I never gave it any second thought, and I never produced any more of them. But since then, if you look at the next one over, I sold some Cappuccinos to Sunjukill. Next one over, Harry. Okay, this is one. This is the sire, I believe. The other one is the dam. So that's what he used to produce in 2023 a pinky, a super pinky. I'm going to refer him to pinky at the end. I'm going to explain to you why. But the next one over should be Sunjukill's. So you can see now, if you look at the dorsums on those, that's the first one he produced. So obviously those two animals, he produced them from those two animals. Now on Sunjukill, he produced these pinkies, these super pink. We'll call them super pinkies for now. But this super pinky he produced them both with good nostrils and bad nostrils. So what that shows us is that the super form of the cappuccino takes the form of the super pinky.
As long as the cappuccino
doesn't have any melanism. Is that okay? So
yeah.
So you're saying if there is, say, a super pinky that is also a heterozygous cappuccino, it shrinks the nostril. Similar to like a luwak.
Yeah,
right.
That's a current working theory. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so basically, you think, I mean, so we'll go deeper than this, but the pinky and the cap are so tightly. I mean, so many of the animals that you see that are pinkies are also cappuccinos. So there's a lot of overlap of making potential homostate or whatever the why am I can't talk. It's too late. Basically, you're making a combination of those two genes together. So that'd be like a 3-gene animal, two copies of pinky, 1 copy of cap.
No,
is what the working theory is why the nostrils
basically non-allelic is what we're thinking. I think there still needs to be a few more breedings to confirm for sure that it's non-allelic, but yeah,
and make ones that are not caps.
Yeah,
to your knowledge.
Because the heterozygous cap has no nostril problems, that animal that he produced that looks like a pinky but has bad nostrils has to have both cap genes. So it has to be a super cap, super pinky.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you said it had two genes,
pinky, and at least 1 cap or 2 cap.
It has to be 2 caps. Correct?
Yeah.
Because
possibly. We don't know for sure if adding the single gene of a cap to another super form can produce small nostrils, or if just any super form has reduced nostrils, right?
Well, do any of
None of
Well,
the
any
super
super form
tables.
that is so extreme that it's nearly wiping out the chromatophores of the animal, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like super EBs, for example, don't have it. Super soft skills don't have it. So yeah.
So to the left of that, Harry, is
Mhm.
the two that he produced them from. So when we're starting to look at what it looks like in the heterozygous form, the only differences that I can see is the dorsum, unless you guys can identify something different.
As far as like a marker,
Yeah, as far as the marker. And
I mean, to me, they look to have a semi-translucent nature to them.
you got to go further over to the left, Harry. The Sunju one.
Yeah.
Which I got to thank Sunju, because a lot of this, because I'm not
Amazing.
working with, I had to go to these people and ask them for information.
They do
And-
seem to have like a pinkish coloration in the where the joints are of the legs, like
Yeah.
the cusp of the arms.
Don't they
Yeah.
look
Right.
kind? They
The
have
neck.
a kind of like almost like some animals that are going into shed. It's got some kind
Like
of
they're bluing.
yeah, like
Yeah.
a bluing to them of some
Yeah.
variety.
I like
It's like
look at
some-
where the fringe would normally be on like this animal right here.
Yeah.
Like the fringe is like purpley. It's weird,
Yeah.
right? It's odd.
It is
It's not
yeah.
normal.
But you do see some of that purpley in Phantom Cappuccinos as well.
Yeah.
But often it comes with like
What?
increased, like it's like a purple plus orange combo.
What
And
would
a
be
lot of
nice?
cats.
Like hype.
This is
Like a
just like
lavender?
we're talking about the community, and it would be great, like to be able to go and say to this breeder, "Hey, can we get a fired up and a fired down picture?" Because we're not even sure what we're looking at here, whether it's fired up or
True.
fired down.
Yeah.
And,
With this
and that would be
phenotype
real-
and how it looks
We're
right
getting a
there, yeah, it's hard to know
snapshot.
for
Yeah,
sure.
just a single
I would
snapshot.
imagine more fired down to be like that one on the left.
that's why it's important that we try to grow ourselves as a community so we can actually get this stuff done so that we can figure this out better. So anyways, so those are the two, and then the babies. So the next one I think is what? This is Gecko Land. Okay, yeah. My friends at Gecko Land, good people. They do a lot of
Super stripes.
stripe stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, real good people. So they provided me with these pictures, and this is a. My eyes are bad there. Genetic
Are these pinky lilies?
Correct. These are pinkies.
Pinky lily. Okay.
You
Pinky
know, that's a good
lily
question.
or frap pinkies?
They look so
Yeah.
similar to fraps. I mean, like at this
If
point,
I
we're gonna
had-
have 3 lily combo genes that look all similar.
If I had to guess, I'd guess the one on the right would be the super pinky lily, but that's just a guess.
These right here, right?
Yeah, oh, okay. So actually, no. Okay, so never mind. That one's from 5G, is it?
Yeah.
5G,
Yeah, 5G.
5G, cray.
What was back over to the Gecko Land? I
Oh.
think we skipped something there. Did we not?
Is Gecko Land? Where is it?
Oh, that's on
Take
5G.
Gecko Land one.
I'm sorry, my eyes are old. Okay, so that's
No
not
Gecko
Gecko
Land.
What do you guys have any theory as to why you're seeing that yellow on the dorsal? Is that like, would you not see that in say phantom variations, or do they all get that?
Oh, it's just. I think it's just part of the morph. Is the
As
yellow.
they grow, the super caps did the same thing. They got that yellow. It
Super
didn't
caps?
come out.
But they don't, when they're little, they don't,
Yellow.
they might have flecking of it, but they don't really show it when they're little, right?
Like a bar of it.
Different damn red. Okay, so I'm sorry, my eyes are bad. So did I not put that picture in there?
Yeah, we don't see Gecko Land. Gecko Land?
5G. Okay, so this is 5G. Okay, so he
Okay.
provided this. So he bought the caps and the fraps, and I think he even got some reds from me that he's produced. He's produced quite a few of these baby pinkies, and his was a little bit later than Sunju, and the other one that here in Korea that I know has produced them is Krepex.
Okay.
So they were both produced theirs in 2023. So this one here
Little hide toes.
just kind of shows you that basically that we have the gene. So even some of those geckos that I sent to the U.S. may have those genes. Mac produces them, and he hasn't identified either as far as what the het looks like. So I don't know if there's a big craze. Is there a big craze, AJ? People run into
for these.
People run into what is that called? Petland
Mac?
or PetSmart?
Nobody's trying to find these
I wonder
at
why.
the pet store yet.
I wonder why.
Because they're all still
like,
looking for caps, Don. That's why.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure there's some in there.
Probably.
But it's kind of, to me, I mean, it doesn't appeal to me. It may appeal to some people, but it's kind of to me, it's a kind of a dead end deal as far as having a
Because
palette.
you can't really combo with it at all.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with it, really? So, but anyway,
Cool, it doesn't have a lot of future combo options.
And they're saying breed just like they did with the super caps and breeding the crest into it. I don't see that happening because this one, the 5G, he doesn't have good structure on his, but I think a lot of them do have good structure, and it's always.
It is interesting though because their head has good bone structure compared to the other supers. Like it has a wider head from a bone standpoint. If you zoom in, Harry.
Lost it. There it goes.
Like their heads don't look nearly as
narrow
from a bone standpoint. They're missing the fringe of the crest themselves, but the structure of their head doesn't look as compromised as like the super sailor and super cap.
You're right.
Don, you've seen these in person, right?
Have I seen any in person? No, I don't think so.
No, I was going to ask you if the tails are longer.
I've never seen. I have seen one in person. I saw one at Tinley.
Or if their feet are larger, like in the super cap.
Feet don't look larger, but
I thought they looked pretty. I thought they looked pretty proportional.
Did they? Okay.
They look like squids.
So
if
you
dude, don't get that.
Ready to breed. There we go.
If you touch its private parts, it'll breed.
So the next picture we had up there, Harry,
my bad. Hold on.
Was just a super cap. But you remember that the super cap, that's a super caps. A lot of super caps took on that kind of, everybody was saying translucent, look,
eyeballs. But
they were more. There was some of them that were quite white, quite grayish white, not like the pinky. But I always said, well, they all came out of Mac. What's the chances of this being,
a second gene?
Allele, right? But we don't think, right, Anthony? We don't think it is.
I mean, I'd agree I agree with you initially. Like, what are the odds that there would be two genes, like, and all around the same time, around 2015 to 2018? That'd be mind blowing. But
the problem
seems like that's exactly what it was. So
the problem that we have with the pinky, first of all, it's like how much effort do you want to put into something that is likely a kind of a dead end? You know what I mean? But it's still good to know for future reference when we start popping out other stuff. So I think that's kind of it's just a learning curve. We need to figure it out. But the problem is that the people that have it right now, the Korean breeders have the communication problems. The guy, what was bug plug, whatever it is. He's
bug plug.
Yeah, he's not really putting out a lot of information on them as far as he's saying he's outbreeding to this, outbreeding to that, but he's not showing any comparison pictures of the heterozygous form. And he's more concerned about the name than he is anything else. But the problem is that we need to figure out, first of all, what het looks like, and then worry about outcrossing them into other things, crossing it back over. What was that, Anthony? You told me they should breed. So Sunju Kill bred a hypo cap to a hypo cap, or sorry, pinky cap, a het pinky cap to a het pinky cap. How's that? And he produced
pinky cap to pinky cap,
the super pinkies.
Right.
So what you're saying is we need to breed a
super
pinky to a single gene cappuccino.
Just the cap. Yeah. To see if you produce any super.
Without any hypo in it. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. You
like
do
just
that,
like
and
one of
then-
those like black-based caps that are clearly
No,
not.
just any cappuccino at all. Like it could just be even a pattern base, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the base is. Just
long as it
any
has a gene.
cappuccino
But something
you
that
know
is not questionable if it's
Yeah.
potentially a pinky. Like when you're
Correct.
confident it's not pinky.
And then when you breed that, you should, in theory, produce no
No
supers.
pinkies. Yeah.
No supers at all. Yeah, exactly.
So for everybody that's listening here that actually has the gene and is working with it, that's what we should do first, and then
Breed them to
kind of
cap.
order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then let's talk about the name. So I've been calling it Pinky because as a standard in the hobby, we've always given credit to the people that first described it or first named it,
Yeah.
first came out with it. Now with the cappuccino gene, the Mac was actually the first one to produce it. We know that, but he never came out with it. And then when I came out with it, he didn't say anything. And if he's the first to produce it, even if he wants to change the name now, I don't care. It'd be kind of silly, but I don't care. So that is that. So the thing is, if you go to the very end of this Pinky deal here, Harry, so I have, when I researched this, because I'm not dealing directly with it, I try to research it so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, and I don't sound quite so stupid. But if you look on that Mac deal,
Yeah.
the date on that is April 26, 2023. The bug plug has a picture in April of 2023 of it coming out, but there was no name attached. There was nothing. These are obviously older animals, so obviously Mac was the first one to produce it. And not only was he the first one to produce it, but he was the first one to name it. So when we're looking at this gene as a whole, right now, if we could I don't think we could possibly mess it up any more than it's messed up. It was called genetic hypo, then it was called fire, then a blizzard. We have
It has 5 different names.
more than 5. It's got now Sunderkill called it Pinky, and if you look at his original post of the Pinky, somebody said, "Hey, is this the same Pinky that Mac's been working with for 2 years?" And that was in 2023. So these have been around for a while. He's named it here. Since that post, it says behind the scenes, Pinky, more to come about this exciting new project.
Yeah.
But nothing else has come out. We're not showing. I think they're selling on Morph Market, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Pets, right? Which,
There's homozygous forms now being sold through Mike Wilbanks on Morph Market.
Okay. So they're selling them, but we haven't even. I mean, to me, publicly, I don't think there's anything been put out as to how do we even identify them.
Yeah.
So anyway, what I'm saying is, instead of all this, I think Crepex was what was
Ghost?
Crepex? Ghost Packs or Ghost,
Yeah.
and Blizzard and Leucistic, and it's just one big cluster. And in the Army, we would call it FUBAR.
How about Super
It's
Fire?
fun,
Is this something?
It's really interesting. So why is Wilbanks, who is the one that is marketing Max animals, calling them fires?
Super Fire.
Okay, so here's the deal, because of Bug Plug, right? And he's trying to claim that he's naming it because he was the first one, whatever. If you look at, here's the problem.
It's a ball python name.
If you look at,
Well, the super fires make the black-eyed Lucy's.
with yellow.
if you look at Crepex's, Crepex's posting on Instagram of his, where he called it Ghost Packs.
Yeah.
If you look at the comments, the Bug Plug put in there, "We have no association with these genetics. We wish them the best of luck." So what he's doing is he's just
Separating
disallowing every single one and saying his is separate. But you cannot do that unless you're breeding it's the same thing with albino and leopard geckos. There was Tremper leopard gecko, and then Bell, and then Rainwater. But in order for Bell name and the Rainwater to be attached to the albino, they needed to breed the two together and prove that it was a different gene.
Yeah.
So,
And that hasn't been done. These two things haven't
that
been
has
bred
not been
together.
done.
You would
We're
have to
looking
breed.
at how many breeders? 10 maybe that are producing the same phenotype.
Yeah.
in everybody's eyes, those are the same phenotype until you prove otherwise. And once you prove otherwise, then you can put your own name on it.
And
So
all of these things lead back to the same path, as far as we know. Mac.
Potentially,
and
yes.
so Mac was the first one. So I'm just saying, I didn't do anything with them last year. This year I'm going to try to produce them, and the reason I'm trying to produce them is not because I like it, but because I want information. I want to know how to identify them. So if I'm correct in my guess as to what I'm breeding, I will produce them this year. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. When I'm dealing with them from my standpoint, I'm referring to them as pinky. Whatever everybody else does, and what morph market, everybody kind of follows morph market. So I don't know what morph market is going to do, and I don't know who has influence with them. But I think we need to get the same name and the same handle on it to stop the confusion. And if somebody decides that that's going to be the fire, blizzard, leucistic, whatever it is, or we're going to go with a pinky, then that's fine. But I'm just saying, for my own, this is me personally, I'm calling them pinky. So if you hear pinky from me, that's what I'm talking about. The only thing I don't know is, do we call it super pinky or do we call it het pinky? Because Mac,
people don't like when you do, like, people hate head empty back and super empty back, or head empty back. People hate that.
Confused with recessive.
Yeah.
So probably do pinky, super pinky.
Agreed.
Okay. So I never liked super really, but
I like super.
Get it. I didn't like it, but it's simple and it's uniform, except for maybe super Dalmatian. But I thought about this before. I think, I'm not a morph chaser, but if I have a project where I think it possibly could be a morph, from now on I'm going to give serious thought. Cappuccino was just kind of something weird that happened that kind of fits the gene.
Mm-hmm.
But from now on, if I have something, I'm going to name my projects things like man and fly and cool and things like that, so that the super form will be Superman, super cool, and super fly. That's what I'm going to try to gear up on a super form.
Okay, let's hope Don doesn't find any more morphs, because the last thing we need is more trolls.
Super jive.
I want to buy the super flies. Put me in there.
Superfly. Okay, is that the vote? Superfly.
Yeah.
I like Superfly.
But before it's Superfly, it's just fly. I got fly.
This is the fly morph.
Just fly.
I just can't wait in from Korea.
Yeah.
I can't wait to buy my first super Grinch. When's that gonna happen?
We need some super Grinch, super avocados.
Super duper Grinch.
This is my idea, but I haven't patented it. So anybody that comes out with a new morph, you're free to use those names. And I think we just decided Superfly might be. So next screen is going to be fly.
Not that that we can make this decision, but you guys think that kind of the general consensus is, you think like pinky, super pinky is probably the most consistent.
I think you have to be respectful of where the gene came from.
It's respectful of the origins.
Yeah, you have to be respectful of the origins. I mean, when I came out with the book, I didn't just change all the names on all the genes that I thought were genes. I was respectful to where they originated from. I claimed none of the genes myself. So you gotta have respect for the people that it at least came from, whether or not they came out with the name or not. Even though Don didn't come out with the super cap and the cap, but he named it initially, and then it took a while. It took months and months and months before Reptiles by Mac actually came out with saying, "Oh yeah, we actually have these," and we realized that's where it came from. So, but he was.
And if they wanted to rename them, that's fine too. I just think, and again,
I mean, at this point, it's pretty too late in the game, to be honest. Like, I mean, everybody knows of them as Cappuccinos, Super Cap. We have Fraps, we have Sorok. Like, it's way too late in the game. But, yeah, agreed.
And when I was researching this and I was looking at the dates and this and that, my intention was to basically figure out. We kind of knew that it came from Mac, but I wanted to see where the ones in Korea came from me, which came from Mac. So everything was drawn back to Mac. Now, I know that the bug plug is saying that his is unrelated, and all I say to that is prove it out and then name it whatever you want. But that's just my feeling. But like AJ was saying, it's not. I mean, we don't have a committee. We don't have a ruling body that says, it's just a bunch of people, and how we come to a conclusion and how the trend goes. It's the same thing with when I came out with Super Cap. I didn't come out with Super Cap. I said it's melanistic because it looked melanistic, and then everybody was saying, "Oh, it's translucent. Why do you name it translucent?" Or it's I didn't name Super Cap. It just kind of we lost melanism. The melanistic kind of dropped off because of public opinion and because that's the way people were comfortable in naming it, and I don't care, and that's fine, and it doesn't matter now anyway. But so.
Will Banks has two things. There's a super fire, also known as Black Eyed Lucy. So we got
super fire. Yeah, and I've heard super genetic hypo.
This is such a cluster. This is terrible.
Look at this. What is going on here, guys?
You have to put AKAs in.
Curse the Gecko, folks. Let's pull our crap together. Let's go.
Let's just pick one thing and just stop calling it 17 different
the problem is that we rush out with all these things. We don't even try to collaborate.
Freaking super fire, man.
It's a race to who can get to naming something first, and that I think that's a big problem in the community. We need to be a little more grouped together.
Yeah,
it's an arms race for IP.
I mean, is it? Do we have this problem in Korea with that kind of like everyone's just trying to do their own thing, or do they come together in general?
Actually, we have this problem across the hobby. Does with all species, to be honest, it's happened in beardies.
In American culture, right?
Yeah,
in Korea, I think it's quite the opposite. You look at Yoon and how she's addressed the marbling. And you look at some of these other ones that we're going to talk about here with the pidefoot and stuff. There's not a bunch of guys jumping on with names and stuff. They're pretty much in line with, hey, let's figure what this is. So, if we're going to move on, people want to call it whatever they want to call it. I'm calling it the pinky and the super pinky. Is that what we said? Yeah. If we don't want to
right here.
Let's see these pidefoots.
All right.
Pidefoot.
Oh yeah, let's go to Pied.
Let's go to Pied. And Don, if we need a part 3,
I'm
we can.
super stoked about this because I want more information.
We're gonna muscle through this one.
Don,
Don's like, I'm not doing this again. So,
Don, we gotta have you on for part 3.
I don't think so. We're gonna go through this. We're almost to the end.
So.
I hope. It's not that I don't love spending time with you guys because I really do.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, Pied. Tell us about Pied.
Again, I don't have Pieds. I'm not working with them, but I wanted to get this information out to people because a lot of it is just not available, or it's just here and there. So, Piedfoot, for years, Anthony, I think, knows about.
Harry, pull the mirror out.
Pangea. He had the Pied.
I bet.
Patient 0.
Yeah, so we did get information about piedfoot animals with several generations of breeding, outcrossing, intercrossing, etc. here in the U.S. side, and none of it has proved genetic. There are a couple of collections out there that are still working on piedfoot here in the U.S. that believe they have proved it to be a gene. And then there's people in Korea that are also saying that have mixed results as well. So just like in the U.S., they have mixed results in Korea, saying that some of the piedfoot animals that they've bred together have not produced genetically additional pied feet, and then some other breeders have produced pied feet from pied feet animal pairings.
Canada too.
Okay.
Oh yeah, in Canada too. Actually, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. So some genetic, some possibly not. So where are we with these, Don? Since you've gotten this information from Korea, from Rake Shop.
Okay, so the ones in the U.S. I guess are nothing firm on it, but so the first one is Rake Shop. So this breeder. Now I'm lumping Pied and Piedfoot all together, but there's some differences here. So the first one is what he produced. And you go into his deal and see what it looked like as a baby is kind of whatever, but The one to the right is the father, which is a cappuccino, and the mother was a lily. That's produced that baby.
Wow.
In addition to that baby, they produced the next one over to the right.
That crazy looking.
They produced this one. Now this one has one normal eye, one black eye, and we believe this is actually a chimera. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like it doesn't have any nostrils either.
Very well may not. It
looks a little snaggly.
Yeah, and I don't even know what happened to it. I didn't ask them, but the one that we're going to key on is that first one. So the next picture over to the right. Okay, so this just happened this week. So that one, the sire. Let me see. He bred it. The dam is a normal, and he bred it to that pied-looking animal, and this is what he got. So what this tells us is that that animal is both cappuccino and lily.
Yep.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is lily.
Wait,
so that animal is a frappuccino.
This one right here.
So yes. So everybody was looking at
That's a frappuccino.
That's that's what the results.
Yeah.
Right? That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Wow, that's
so
cool.
People were looking at pied as the answer to this, and it may not be. It may be just another gene that's in there that's causing the pattern to mutate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
Now, that baby,
That's
if you go back to his feed,
this one is crazy though. This one
is that baby is the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom is a cap.
Yeah.
No?
This one's a cap.
Yeah. That's got to be
This one's a lily.
Cap and a lily.
That's
100%
cap and lily.
Yeah, that's really.
If that's not screaming a cap and a lily to you,
it could actually.
Well, I couldn't see Harry.
It could actually be a frappuccino.
Harry, your navigation.
It could maybe be a frap. You'd have to see a little.
You'd have to look at a different angle, but it could be a frap. But either way, it has a lily gene, so we know that
lily is present in that animal.
Is a frap. But what's causing the pattern disruption is who knows? It's to be determined. But so he's got some interesting projects. This is Rake Shop.
Yeah.
And he shared the information with me. He seems like a real good guy. I don't really know him, like we're not buddies, but so anyway, that's that one. So next one is Gecko Land. Gecko Land is
okay. So what is this? This is the pied foot.
This is their pied foot that they produced. So Gecko Land was.
Is this what they're saying is the genetic version?
Well, we don't know that yet. This is just one they just produced this. I don't think that they have any more. So this was produced by a F1 cap that they got. They got the cap from me, and they produced another cap. They bred that cap to a lily, and this is what they got.
Don, you're making me more.
Again, I'm not trying to tie cap with.
I know you're not.
I'm just saying that
what the pairings were. Yeah.
It's got all
what
this
they were.
stuff up there.
So the next one is Craborghini. There's another one. Is that?
These are
That one.
These are the
The
pairs.
one just before looks
That's
like
almost
like pixelish into it.
This
Yeah,
one right
that kind
here,
of looks like
Then
a
has
pixel
these-
too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so they have produced another one. I'm sorry. This is their second one. So they got
They
two.
produced
of them,
two.
Well, I
Yeah.
can't even tell if it's the same animal or not. Like
Yeah.
on the left to the right there, Harry.
It
Well, I guess
could just be
It could be
bigger.
fired.
No.
Yeah,
Look
this
at
is
the
fired
base
up.
of
This
the
was
I
tail.
mean,
fired
it's
up.
You see that?
definitely older.
Look at the
in
base
the
of the
right
tail.
picture.
Harry, zoom in a bit and look at the base of the tail. You see that little
Right here,
triangular
right?
shape? Yeah,
it
that
looks
little
similar,
shape
yeah.
is there on both
Yeah,
of them. So it might
I
be
think
the
so.
same animal,
Just
It
older.
might be.
older.
Yeah.
Could be. I didn't have it in my notes. So.
Mhm.
But you
And
can
it's
see
up
the
and
adults. The adults too. It was a cap that they produced from RCK cap, and then a lily.
So there's one so far. Hopefully they produce more. That'd be fantastic if
Now
they do. To be
I was
honest.
at their table at a show a while back, and there was a guy there, and I didn't get his name. I did, but I can't find it in my phone.
Are these the two parents then from that last gecko?
Yeah, that's the two parents. But the
Mm,
guy
got
that
it.
Booth, he's produced, I think, at least a dozen pied foots, and they're consistent. Some of them, the white on the foot goes all the way up the leg. They're pretty cool. But I couldn't get that
That's
information for this one. I'm going to try to get it next time I do a show.
Okay,
this
so what's
is
the
one
next thing?
I produced it. years
Well,
ago.
what is it?
I don't know.
Obviously not alive, but
You tell me. I
Like-
don't know. It's
silvery, short tail, pied toes.
Yeah. And we get
Bronze. I mean, it's shiny. It looks like
we get
metal,
weird stuff like
but it's
that
probably
out
because it
once in a
hasn't
while.
shed because it passed away.
It was something that never went anywhere, but I just
Yeah.
put it in there because it did have pied feet. It's just something that popped out.
Oh
So
my
the next one over should be Crabergini, right? Yeah.
Oh.
Is this a chimera?
Look at this thing.
Chimera?
Pretty crazy, right?
What
Yeah,
do we
I've
got?
seen this animal.
What information do we have on this, Don? What is this?
Only-
Was it also produced out of your cappuccinos? Like,
He produced it frap by normal.
wait, say again.
Frappuccino
So
by
the same combo: cap, lily, normal.
Yeah. So there's some indication that maybe these frappuccinos,
like I am.
there may be another gene that's disrupting pattern
It's kind of floating around.
that is floating around.
Lamborghini has produced more than just one, though, right? I thought.
I think that he just keeps posting the same animal. Was
I
it?
think
Is
it's
it
the same one.
animal?
Yeah.
Okay.
In different progression.
What kind of water do they have in Korea, babe?
Maybe there is another one, or is that the same gecko?
Is
This
this
is
after
in
the
weeks ago.
nuclear explosion in Japan?
That's the same gecko.
Oh, same gecko. Okay.
Oh, that's
Weird.
crazy.
Weird.
More pied feet. Okay.
Yeah, this is the same.
See,
same gecko.
Where did all that
This could
color
just be
go?
a hidden gene. I don't know. So
Another
What
hidden
color
gene
is it?
Walma.
Is it like pink?
Is that
Look at
Gucci
that
color?
color. It's wild. I think it's just because it's firing up and firing down there that is so bizarre, Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Look at that. That if that is a gene, it's probably going to be one of my favorite. I can't even tell if it's lily or not. It looks kind of like a lily because of the belly,
Yeah, the lateral line and stuff.
but
the
it's
leg,
really
the leg
hard to
banding.
I mean, it's a
tell,
frap.
right? I hope that animal breeds and just they're able to really identify what's in it. And
It's
then
a
make
female,
more.
right?
Mhm.
So that's the
Female to
thing.
me.
That's the thing with these. Some of these genes. I mean, genes can mutate and give us something that we can work with, and sometimes they give us stuff that we can't work with, and sometimes they're just hidden. Look how long
Yeah.
the calf gene was hidden in plain view. You know.
Yeah.
And there's a gene in super Dalmatians that there's a breeder that has, and I think it's in more than one different colony, but he produces these fatal babies that are kind of albino looking. Actually, I'll wait on that because I have albino that I want to show you. So we'll wait.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
I've seen some of those even from Mark at Northern Gecko.
The ones like I got.
Yeah, just like
Harry, get off the
Oh,
pad.
sorry.
Harry, let's go
I
back
do
to
love
the
chinchillas,
mural,
though.
please.
Here we
I
go.
do love the chinchillas, though.
The last one is from Jif. And again,
Jif.
these are just works in progress, and these people aren't like naming names and giving them and confusing
That
people.
looks
They're just
exactly like
sharing
the
the
one from
information.
Ellen.
Okay, so these
So-
are
High
interesting.
foot.
The
The
ones from
sire
Jif.
the sire on the far right is Xanthic.
Oh, sire is a X. Okay.
What's
And
the mother?
Female is a pied that they bought from I think imported from the States, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
don't see a picture of it, right?
What do you mean
So-
a pied that they
Pied
imported
foot,
from the
pied foot.
From who?
I don't know because there's a lot of pied foots running around, right, Anthony? But you
In
said
the U.S., yeah, there's a lot of them.
that they're not being reproduced. So, but they
Mm.
imported one a few years back. I think it's that second one there. And
Oh,
then
okay.
the one on the far left is a baby that they produced. So what they told me was the first year they bred them, they were 0 for 6. They produced no pied foots. I'm sorry. The second year
Okay.
they produced 7 for 12
What?
out of the same pairing.
That's awesome.
So
See,
they're
that's
so
why
they're
sometimes
showing
you
it to
breed
be
multiple seasons, same pairings.
Yeah, that's why you 100% like you can get odds like that in every species
Yeah.
where you're just like,
I mean-
oh, it's not a gene. I produced 0.
I
We
know. I
have
told you,
A
Anthony.
friend
When I,
here locally, and let me finish real quick there. We have a friend locally here that bred 2 100% het albino ball pythons for what was it, 7 years? 7 years, produced 0 albino. Finally, they sold the animal to a friend. Animal produced
Repeated the pairing.
100. Yeah, repeated the pairing, produced 100% albino for 2 seasons after that.
Wow.
100% albino, which is insane, right?
I know
Sorry,
when people were breeding like head axes and getting odds like that, I'm like, guys, I forget who I was talking to, but I was like, when I first got lily white and I bred lily white to a normal, I think I went like 30. I went like 0 for 30 before I had a lily.
That's crazy.
Our first cap that
Terrible
we
odds.
told Don we got a dud because our
Oh,
cap
yeah.
wasn't producing any.
Yeah, we got 0 for 9.
Yeah, like 9.
Our cap
9
pairing, and I was
babies.
like, Don, you
No
sure
cap.
this one's a cap?
They had me worried there for a little while.
We got
called him a
hosed.
dud.
Hosed by Don.
Yeah. But after that, Don, he's been 50%.
Don scammed you guys.
No, he produces more caps than non-caps.
Now he does.
Like
Yeah, he's got to
evening
catch
it,
up.
yeah.
He's got to catch up.
Scam City, Korea.
It all, the odds even out eventually. So,
Yeah.
but
They
that's
do, they
where
do.
it's 7 for 12. So it's reproducible here on at least a few
this is
people.
pretty- Yeah, it's great. Relax, Lily.
Are you okay?
Okay.
Anyway, that's cool.
So I didn't have a lot of information to put out on pies except that people are working with them. They are showing some
Repeatability.
Some things are showing that it's in it, and I would categorize the pied foot and the pieds because of what's going on there with that, especially this week with the 2 babies with the lily and it showing it to be so we might have just a pattern mutated frap.
So that's a good
versus
good information
pied.
for everybody out there. If you guys have projects and you guys are working on something and you think it might be something, keep at it. It's you're going for the long haul. It's a long game here sometimes.
And document.
It takes 2-3 seasons. Document it, get your information straight, and then just keep working it.
The trend is you pair for
Never
one
give
season,
up.
pair for 1 season, and then you create a line out of it. So
No.
Yeah.
And then you change the name 4 times.
And 2 morphs. A lot
trend.
of 2 morphs.
It's American trend. All right.
Okay, so what's next?
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? Let's see.
Oh, we did marbling already, so we're good there.
Cat
To thrill the
mutation.
chase. Oh, cat
Okay.
mutations.
Cappy.
So, cat
Before
mutation-
we get to this though, Harry, pull up what is it? Oink?
Point.
Oink has some that are really similar to these pied animals.
Ointy.
Before we get off subject,
Let me point Ointy.
he's got some that he's working that have this a very similar look to them, where the patterning kind of like dissolves. Have you seen those two, Don?
It isn't Oink, right? The ones that
No,
Oink have.
He's working with a friend that
breeding
does it.
scars. Yeah.
Yeah,
somebody
no,
else has
yeah,
it.
yeah. Oink just has breeding scars,
Oh.
some of his, but
Chang.
say it,
Chang.
Shang,
John,
JJANG.
CRE_JJANG.
Jajang. Oh wait. Oh sorry. I didn't know it was
That one. There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the
as far as I
person
know, he has one. Yeah,
is
that
a
one.
Yeah.
bunch.
He's got a couple of these now. Apparently, the pattern disappears, so it starts off looking more like a normal animal.
What did?
And then-
what made this? Like, are they frapped?
Act-
This is like a reverse pinky.
That's crazy.
Does it say what he's breeding to?
Yeah.
Well, go to the person that he tagged, right?
Oh, it's crazy.
Like the little tag.
Oh, Krajang.
Because they have baby photos too.
You tagged it, but then they don't exist.
Can we get a
Oh,
gene that actually has head structure and doesn't make the animal look
No,
like
it's impossible.
translucent?
I mean, if you want a gene that has a het and a super form, go to empty back and
Yeah.
super stripes and super soft scale.
bugs in here. Sorry. Here's a video.
Yeah, see,
Wait, that's
so
not a video.
like, see, there you go. That
Yeah.
picture right there. Those look
It looks
just
like
like
the other
similar,
ones, yeah.
look really similar to the ones you just showed, Don, on the mirror.
Yeah. Actually, the other one, his babies, the very first one that we said was a Frappuccino, his babies look totally different than what the adult looks like. And the same
Yeah.
thing. My question would be, is this possibly a cap lily mixture? And it's
Right. Like another, what is with the frap? I don't know, man. I'm going to do so many frap pairings this year now.
well,
We're just gonna
that's
see. We
always
gotta
fun.
pop all these translucent things from breeding fraps.
I believe that fraps is the most exciting. That's what I love fraps and
I think so
making them
too.
with different stuff.
There's so much variety.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I'd
Captain
agree with
fraps.
that. The variety that you can see in a frap, like, you know, those purpley ones that were really exciting back
Mhm.
when they first kind of came out. We're making those, the purple ones with the purple
Yeah.
heads.
Yeah.
And like, they're probably one of my favorite ones. I mean, especially when
That's
they
so
get
cool.
to like, you know, like 7, 8, 9 grams.
Yeah.
And then beyond, and that purple head just keeps getting more and more purple.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things for frap.
so cool.
All right, let's look at these cappuccino
What is this
gene
thing,
mutations.
Don?
So
It's a
we
cap.
talked about I don't know.
It's got the cap tail.
Super
Yeah,
empty back.
I believe that. Okay, so before I was talking about let's not produce super caps. We don't breed cap to cap just in the hope that the gene's going to mutate. However, responsibly, we should always test the waters with things that we think possibly might have the cap gene that has mutated. And this is something that I popped out. It was a one-off, and it's a male, and he's now about 25 or 28 grams, I think. And it's something that I just believe that there's a possibility that it might be a mutation. So I'm
Did
going
I
to breed.
send you an empty back, Don?
Yes,
Yeah, but I want to breed
You
this to
should
a cap and
breed
produce super.
but they're both males.
You should breed to a. Oh, that's right. They're both males. You should try
my
whatever the
intention-
offspring are if you can.
I'm going to do 2 pairings. I'm going to do it with a lily, just because lily is such a good gauge to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm going to breed it to another cappuccino and see what the super looks like, and see if you're going to do it. If you're going to produce supers, then at least give yourself a better running shot at producing.
AJ, do you see the tail stripes there that I mentioned it in the empty back thing?
They go all the way up.
Yeah.
There's a close up of the tails, Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing.
Don, have you ever seen the empty back episode that we did with AJ and Harry?
I don't think so. Oh,
it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You'd like.
I mentioned that for the head empty backs or empty backs, for those
hatch marks
using the word hat.
Yeah, I've
there
always
are
known
hash
that.
marks on the tails that, for some reason, are more common in the hets and also the super forms to help people identify if empty back is potentially in the animal. And so this one, I also mentioned back when we did a cappuccino episode that cappuccinos have these stripes in the tail that are very similar to what you would find in phantoms. But if it's not phantom, then you're still going to see those tail stripes in the cappuccinos, another like marker that I mentioned. So seeing that this animal has not only both the empty back markers and the cappuccino markers, but almost exaggerated. It looks to me like they're stacking on top of each other to produce what I would say is an empty back cappuccino.
And also Sable's tail marker looks pretty similar too. But I find Sable's tail marker to be lighter colored than the cap tails.
Yeah, it is different than the cap.
They're lighter gray, light gray.
Depends on how much pattern you have in the sable, because it can also reduce quite a bit in the sables if you have, like, I don't know what your frost line ones look like, but I would assume
this one, Harry, if you go all the way over to that tail, a little bit more see that is. I just took these last week. The tail's kind of taking on a red tint, orangish tint, a little bit more. He's still progressing a little bit and changing a little bit of color so this is just a project. I think I'll name it Fly.
Super Fly.
A fly project.
Oh, I hope you produce a superfly.
Fly.
So
You know what you
actually,
call
I
this?
don't know. We couldn't if it's a Oh, actually, it's a mutated. If it's a mutated cap gene, I could. It's going to get a new name, right?
Yeah,
Super
if
flyer.
it is, you'd get a new
You can't
name.
say super cap.
No, you can't.
Super duper.
Okay,
Super
so it's
duper.
fly project. So the next one over is another one. Just we always spitting out stuff that's a little different, a little unusual, and it's just things that I'm growing out, and I'll make a decision whether or not that's something that I want to work with. And on this one, you can see the dorsal pattern is completely different.
Mhm.
Acid
but
cappuccino.
No, this one's
but if
called
you look
Sis.
at
I got dibs on it.
look at the eyes.
No, really.
There's one eye,
Hmm?
and there's the other eye.
Oh.
And this is not like dilated eye or anything. It's always that way.
That's always like this.
Has it got like a blown pupil?
Jesus, Rusty.
I checked the visibility. There's no impairment there at all. It's just it's something different, but it's not as bad as Isaac.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that gecko, yeah.
Okay, so
Do you
that's
guys
just
know what
something
he's talking
different
about?
I'm probably going to work with. So the orange one, like I said before, that was just in there to make a point. If we're just going to call things morphs and say that it's different, then this would be a different morph, but we know it's not. So the next one over is another one that I had in my colony. It's got dark eyes, black eyes, just like the black-eyed leucistics,
Lucy.
but it's
Yeah.
not leucistic. Again, this is a little baby, so I have some work to do on this one to see what's going on with it. His eyes seem a little bit smaller too, not quite as big as normal, but they're both black eyes. The next one over is as we try to do these combos, we're going to have some confusion. So this is a
That's
frap
head act?
exanthic. Yeah, that's a frap exanthic. So before people say, well, I thought you weren't going to outbreed to exanthics, but I've decided to do that. Some people are doing it. I don't see a big. I'm not crazy about exanthic caps. However, exanthic fraps and especially exanthic sables, super sables, no, not super sables, exanthic sables are pretty interesting. It just kind of
It changes pattern too.
Yeah, and the contrast, and I like them. So I can see once we add lily where I'm going to have fun with it. I don't know about non-lilies, and it's going to be more difficult. If you think that
Well, maybe if you get all 3 white pattern genes that we're talking about into it, it might present in a really interesting, pretty way, right?
I'm just thinking that the dark, just like the dark phantom caps are difficult to tell. I think that
right. Yeah, you get back to dark to dark mutations, and it gets difficult. I understand.
Same thing with this one. Now this one here, this is I bred in this year for the first time the margin gene, and you can see the margin, of course, is associated with phantom. And when we start making Cappuccinos, it kind of causes a little bit of question as to whether or not this has actually got the cap gene into it. And these are just going to be
that
learning.
looks like a frap to me.
It looks like a frap to me too.
Yeah.
But you can see where it's a little bit different than most fraps.
But I can also see how it's difficult to tell unless you have a trained eye and you have experience with producing.
I swear the most incorrectly identified animals I see consistently right now is phantom fraps.
Yeah, phantom fraps.
I see so many animals being sold as phantom fraps. They're just phantom lily whites.
And so this is something I'm going to work on and test out. But now on the margin, Anthony, typically that muddling or that discoloration is restricted to the dorsal, correct?
Dorsum, the head. Yeah, you can
Margin.
get some up in the arm area or the
if you look at this one
area as well.
This one has migrated down into the lateral.
The lateral.
Can you see it?
Yep, I see it. No,
So-
the lateral. Right.
I hadn't seen that before in any of my other
Look at my
markets.
mouse, Harry.
Mm.
Right there.
I mean, you can see it all up in there. It's
Mhm.
migrated down, and I hadn't seen that in anything else, and I was wondering maybe that's because we know that the phantom gene.
My I have a punks line that has basically margin. It's on a black based animal with a lot of orange patterning, and basically the whole dorsal and the head and everything. What I'm trying to do is black it all out so that there's just flames kind of coming up. And on the laterals, you can see, because they're also hypertangerine, so it's like heavily stacked advanced animal. The laterals also technically have that darkening to them. And then the hypertangerine kind of goes on top of it, if you will. But yeah.
So my point on this whole deal is basically we're still learning. We got a long way to go with the cap gene, with the pinkies, with all the different stuff that's coming out. And so if we communicate and talk and share this information, then we're going to be better off for it. So I'm always willing to, if people come onto my Instagram, I'm always willing to share my findings, and they may not be the same as somebody else doing the exact same project, but with different animals. It's always going to have some variation. Is there anything else left in this one, Harry?
Let's see.
You've got some caps and stuff at the end there.
Oh, this one. This
That
one
one's
I showed
cool.
you guys yesterday when we were talking. Where
that one's cool.
where I've actually
Looks like a
found.
cow.
I went back into my room and I found a couple of different ones.
Great.
If you look at it, we thought that, Anthony, we thought that was simply because of that the drippy was allowing to drip because of the broken pin, but there is no pin even in the non-white areas along that dorsal. If you look close up, can you focus on that, Harry? Close. There's no pinning.
Yeah.
That's blocking it. So we
Those
would see
blocks is what I would imagine are the pinning, because you can see the raised scales there.
Right here.
Yeah.
But it's allowing it to go through that, and then if you look at the empty spots, I
That's
mean, they may
cool.
be there if we went in
100%.
further. But
Yeah.
So I just thought this was interesting. The way that pattern is taking that drippy and marrying it with the dorsal.
Yeah.
And I thought when this one hatched out that it was actually a cappuccino, but it is definitely a frappuccino. So the next one over, I went back in there and I found a couple more. This is another one that not quite the same as that, but
look at that.
actually I put this on Feeble yesterday.
But you see how the basically, like, you can see where the tigring's coming through the dorsal, cutting across into the lateral, those real dark lines. And then, like, when I say partial pinning, like, if you look here at the, like, base of the tail, you can see some of that pinning kind of coming through, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's not, there's not a whole lot of pinning on this animal, obviously. So it's very, very partial.
It's rather unique trait, though.
Oh yeah, it's freaking gorgeous.
And I think that's another reason. These are both frappuccinos, so I think that would be cool is if you could get that drip going, like all the way, like to meet the bottom white or pattern coming up. Kind of make it. So you can get that zigzag patterning along the lateral. I thought that would be really cool. So I'm going to work on this. I put this one on fetal, but I have some more in there, and the first one I'm going to keep. And
I want one. I want one of those, Don. I'm looking at it on fetal. I'm looking at it on fetal right now.
For you.
Save some of the best stuff for us.
No,
I will.
You guys are.
Yeah.
I always get stuff.
Tell us these.
Anthony, and Jess, you guys get all the best stuff already. So
sorry, guys.
You guys got Mr. Grinch.
You got the Grinch project.
You can send Mr. Grinch, or you can import this one for us. That's your two options.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, really cool, Don. I like these.
That's so
these
cool.
animals.
I think Frappuccino has got so much potential. So
Cap
anyway,
and Frap.
Yeah,
very cool.
But in order in Fraps, it's like you want the caps because I'm not talking about buying Fraps. I'm talking about actually making them is the fun part.
Yeah.
Figuring out what lily to pair with what cap and see what comes out of it. That's the fun of it all, I think.
Yeah. That's cool.
So what's next?
The thrill of the chase.
What is this?
I'm not even on camera, huh?
That's
That's Isaiah.
Oh.
Isaiah is Isaiah. So I posted this on my Instagram, and somebody said you really need to improve your Photoshop because it sucks. That is not Photoshop.
I
That
think
is
you really
100%.
need to-
Does it have
community
eyes on
college.
the other side? Does it have 3 eyes?
One eye. And if you look at it, you kind of can tell from this picture. A lot of people are getting the Siamese twins or whatever you want to call them, the conjoined twins, and this one simply probably early on started absorbing the other baby and didn't quite finish. So it's kind of the remnants of the other gecko's head on there.
Yeah.
Only one eye, so it's a 3-eyed gecko, but it's 100%
Wow.
no Photoshop.
Wow.
And we're always going to get. So what is the title of this? Shoots and Ladder. I think.
Thrill of the chase.
Thrill of the chase.
Yeah.
You're chasing the thrill.
So we're always going to
Shoots
get
and ladders,
these.
thrill of chase. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're always going to get these. So this first one. Now, if you look at that first picture, when I opened up the egg box,
Yeah,
you can it jumps right out at you. It's like that.
Yeah.
Not even
Wow.
tangerine.
Color.
That's a albino. That's just screamed. It's like my sphincter was so small that you need a loop to find it.
You have to bust the microscope out.
The electronic super microscope. This was so I can't tell you, I was so excited, man. But it was a super disappointment for me because if you look at it, so when I pulled it out of there, I thought, okay, this is a T plus albino because the eyes, the next one over, Harry.
Okay, 1 second.
The eyes indicated that it was. There you go. I don't know. That's not a picture of the eye, but anyway, it was like albino to me.
Okay.
Like,
There you go.
Yeah, there. So it's like a T plus albino. So, I was so excited, and I was feeding this insects a lot and trying to grow it up. Now, one thing I did notice that it had normal sized tail. Everything was normal except it had oversized feet. And I don't even know the year. This was maybe 2021, maybe. It was before the caps. And it came out of my red line that I got from AC. So you see how big the feet are on those. Mm-hmm. So I was feeding this thing in insects and stuff, and I was so happy. And I think I posted some stuff on Instagram. And about 3 or 4 months in, his legs first started with his back legs, but they kind of did a flip-flop. They kind of reversed, like almost backwards. And then the front feet started doing that. And I thought, oh my God, I gave him too much protein. I tried to go too fast. It was my fault. I can't believe it. And it got so bad and contorted that we had to put it down. So about 6 months later, I had another one hatch. And I said, okay, I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to do it the right way. Same exact thing happened. So this is what I'm talking about, shoots and ladders.
Even there, it kind of looks a little jacked up.
You're just going to get that in.
Chest looks wide too.
It was actually, and even at that point, I raised it up and his legs got contorted on the second one. I mean, when you put food in there, he would like do the worm to get to it. You know what I'm talking about? He ate great. Everything was good, but I mean, obviously it was a serious disappointment. And so you're going to have these kinds of projects. And this is another one here that the other one, next one over, kind of went nowhere. I thought, oh, that's cool. I ended up, I didn't even think I thought it was something in the egg, and I ended up giving it to a friend that was begging me for it. These are just gray spots on just different things that's going to pop out. Yeah. And everything's not a morph. And even if it is a morph, it doesn't mean that it's going to be viable or that it's going to be good. So people just need to keep their perspective on life and what they're doing and stay grounded and try to stay informative with other people and share information. So that's all this was. So I think that's okay.
Northern had albino?
Had something very similar that looked albino.
Did he say what happened?
Passed away. He's had multiple. I think
Okay,
he
so-
even made a post on Facebook about it a long time ago, 2009 or something like that.
Did he?
Yeah.
He gets stuff from AC too, I think. So anyway, so the other thing is, I briefly started to talk about it. There's these genes that are hidden, or genes that come out that are on a dead end, that are nowhere, but we just need to be open. And there's a super Dalmatian, a guy that breeds super Dalmatians, and he's producing these fatal, almost albino looking geckos. And he puts pictures on there, and he's very upfront, and he lets everybody know what's going on. But the problem is that when he shares this information, I don't think we always take the right approach, because he's stating that when he pairs these super Dalmatians up together, some pairings will produce at a rate of 25% these orangish fatal babies.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what that tells us is what, Anthony?
That it's probably a recessive mutation if you're keeping track of those percentages correctly.
25%. It could even be dominant, right? At 25%.
Normally it'd be more like 50%, but yeah.
If it's a super form, but that means typically you would have some sort
If it's a super form, then yeah, also
Yeah.
25%.
So the problem here is that what we're doing is our remedy is to never pair those two animals up together, which is responsible, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've done that for the last 20 plus years. I mean, we've done that with Phantom to the point where it's just like, oh, I produced a Phantom. I'll never pair that up again with some breeders in the US.
But the problem that I see is if we know that this is at 25%, we know it's a gene, and we separate them, the siblings to the ones that aren't fatal, as well as everything that's produced with other pairings that don't produce the fatal babies, are
Potentially carrying the gene.
not potentially. They're going to be sending the gene out there, but it's not going to be.
Yeah.
You can't. There's no identifying markers. So what we're doing is we're sending out an invisible cap gene.
Time bomb, basically, if you will.
And
an invisible
So-
fatal gene into the world of
to be fair, I mean, if it's fatal and it polices itself up, it simply means that anybody that's buying those and pairs them up are going to produce less viable babies.
You could say they're het for fatal.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
I believe that is actually the correct genetic terminology is het for fatal.
Try to market that though.
Yeah.
Het fatal. So
Yeah, I mean, technically you would say Cappuccino and Lily are het for fatal.
Yeah. Okay. But my only point is that we I guess, so what is the alternative to that? I guess never breed those again and sell them as pet only.
Yeah, I mean, or don't sell them, just let them live out their life in your collection and pass away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too. So I just want to make a point that all this stuff that we're talking about as far as genetics go, now we're going to need a loop to see Harry's butthole, because I'm going to say I told these guys after we were talking, I said, there's two kinds of people in the crested gecko community, those that are stupid and those that are ignorant. And the only difference is that stupid people don't realize that they're ignorant. We are all ignorant.
We all have something to learn. I would agree with that.
Anthony,
we all have the potential
to ignorant is a kind of
more information.
Well, that's an old man kind of terminology, but
yeah,
Anthony is less ignorant on genetics than I am. I'm more ignorant. So the only thing that stupid people don't realize, and they think that their way, that their opinion is the only one that matters, and that's so we're going to be proven wrong, even scientifically, when they do science. When they have findings for science in science, years later it changes because they were ignorant to certain factors that influenced it, and the outcome was different. And that is like crested gecko breeding 101. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So
I'm of the opinion that if anybody is presenting something as 100% factual or concrete, and like it's you're likely not looking at all the information, right? Like foundation genetics, when we present it as this is the current best working theory for how things present when breeding, right? And you have percentages between 60 to 100% if you follow the data. There's other people who have articles that are, this is 100% concrete proven. You can't be 100% concrete and proven, even if you have 20 plus years of breeding experience, which we do, right? And I still don't present that information as 100% concrete and proven. You have to be open to the possibility that you're incorrect or that you're wrong, and you have to look at all viewpoints, in my opinion. That's the best way to debate, argue, and talk about this, because if you go with I'm 100% right, then we're back to polygenic and polymorphism, and everything's a box of chocolates, right? And you have
always said that your genetic foundation is a living, breathing document, and it's always going to change. It's always going to grow, and it's always, and people disagree with you, and they go over there and they make their own genetic papers.
Assumptions.
And the thing I like about Genetic Foundation, and if anybody's listening to this and they're new, go to Genetic Foundation. Stay out of the damn chat rooms, because you got a bunch of people in there that don't necessarily know what you're talking about. Go to Genetic Foundation and live there and read that thing over and over and over. I go in there all the time and I read and read and read. I went to one of the new ones, and the first page was like 128 square block square, and my mind just went ding ding, and just loaded up. So the thing about Anthony's is that he can take the science and he can translate it. Janine did a podcast with you guys about a year ago or something from Treehouse. My friend Janine.
She wanted you to come on at the same time, Don. By the way, she is really pushing for you to come on.
She's good people.
Yeah,
she's good people. But she said that she is not a technical breeder; she's a visual breeder.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Anthony's breeder. I think AJ's kind of split down the middle, and maybe even Harry, because he does a lot of research. But I'm more of a visual breeder. I take two things together that I like, and I put them together, and I wait and see what happens. So I like being a visual breeder. But Foundation Genetics, people can go in there, and he takes the science and translates it into an understandable. If I can understand, anybody can understand it. So
I agree. Anytime people ask, and a lot of new breeders watch the Gecko Pod and buy our animals, and anytime they have questions, I'm like, oh, go watch the Gecko Pod, go read Foundation Genetics. And it's not, I always say, we're not the only source. I'm going to say we're a good source to kind of learn off of. And if you find any other information from other sources and you kind of learn from them as well, then you'll kind of formulate some, a better.
And that Palm Street you guys do is real nice. I watched that, and the same thing. That you can interact a little bit more.
A bit of have an educational take.
Yeah, some kind of Q&A as you're doing stuff.
Yeah. That's nice. But we got to have a sort, and that's one reason I did the Gecko Pod, is because I put something on Instagram about Cappuccinos, and nobody goes back 2 years and looks at all the different,
that's true.
So this is always going to be there, and you have the episode that people titled, so they know that interests me, and I can go look at it. So that's why.
A lot of new breeders always ask questions, and we're just watch 2.5 years of Gecko Pod, and you'll learn something. Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, last week's episode got a bunch of, 2 weeks ago got a bunch of views and tons of feedback, and people said it was super helpful, and
we got a lot of feedback.
So.
And Don, you said you're looking for negative feedback though, so we
no negative feedback.
I'll get
At least they're scared. Maybe they're scared too.
No, I think you'll be all right.
I like negative feedback. It helps me improve.
Did we have anything else on there? I think we did.
Let me see. Let's do a final sweep, and then we'll land the plane here.
I know that we did, because I put something in there specifically for you guys, because I wanted to slam you.
We got marbling,
Ooh.
polydactyls.
Pollies.
Polydactyl toads.
Well-
That's my specialty.
Go back up.
Go back up. All right.
Right there.
Oh,
okay.
nice.
I want to say them.
Exclusive
Everybody.
overalls.
So these guys are liars because they said they were all going to wear these overalls because after the last Gecko Pod that we did, AJ was like, I see all these pictures of these really short Koreans and these really tall guy and these and it's
These
so
guys
funny.
are Koreans.
So
Oh,
they said they were going to wear them, so I put that picture in there for you guys.
Dang,
Liars.
where do you find pictures of Korean guys wearing overalls? That's
Are they Korean?
yeah.
These guys are
It came up on my feed and I saw it.
some
And I
type
laughed. I
of
said,
East.
This guy's Korean. He's not Chinese.
yeah.
wow. That's
So
amazing.
anyway,
Oh, it's the
Well,
same
Don,
model.
I'm
Same brand.
sorry. I thought we were just making a joke about wearing the overalls.
Well,
Hey,
I
when we
want
do
mine.
when we do episode 3, I
Yeah.
promise I'll wear them.
okay.
I don't
Yeah,
That's
episode
how
3.
that's how we'll get you back. I promise 100% I will wear one.
We're gonna wear our Dickies.
I always
If there's an episode 3, Jess and I will also wear them.
Yeah.
We're down.
Yes.
All right.
We're gonna
You
do
guys,
it.
And we got to stick the pens up in here, Don, like you do.
yeah, pens, and then you got. Hey, you know what? Your
And stick the
iPhone
glasses
fits
in, and then you got to wear the mask too.
I always.
Oh,
And then you got the baseball hat too.
I don't know about the mask. We're done with
I like that. I like that picture next to you. By the way, that's beautiful.
Which one?
With the,
this?
the hawk. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I made that.
Oh,
You-
that's
you-
beautiful.
Wait, are you
You drew
trolling?
that?
Did you make that?
I did. I did.
Okay.
You did not draw that.
It's all
We
hand
know-
embroidered. Yeah, it took
We
me
know you well
years.
enough now when you're trolling.
Actually, there's two of them. Oh,
Oh, I need one of these.
and they're nice. That's quite old. You know, I like antiques, even Asian antiques.
Yeah.
I used to collect them a lot. So, is there anything else? What else was on there?
We got
wanna
marbling
do
and
polydactyls?
polytoad.
Jackal toes.
Do you want to do them?
Tell us. Give us a brief polydactyl.
Oh,
toe.
wait. Right here, cappuccino traits. I saw this one. The reason I put this on here, I saw this the other day. Somebody was saying
Yeah,
about, oh,
I
is
saw
my
this the other day,
animal a cappuccino or whatever, and they put this on. So this came, if you go into Morph Market, you can find this very easily.
Hmm.
It's one of the top, it has a lot of Anthony stuff, but
Yeah.
above it, right up on the top, there's somebody's
Where did this come from?
or something. That one came from somebody that actually wasn't even a cap guy, but they started getting the caps imported from Korea, and
Hmm.
they were well known. But anyway, they made this, and this kind of stuff is the problem too. It's still out there. Cappuccino traits. What does it say?
White at the base of the tail. White
White
flecks.
fleckings
I can't
leading
read
up
it
to the
from here.
spine.
Go down, Harry.
Splotching on the lower end of the spine, and almost no lateral pattern.
So we still have this stuff that's like how many years old?
Take that, yeah,
It's
take
wrong.
that down.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
wrong.
really
it was
bad.
wrong from the
That's to
beginning.
identify
right?
first gen cappuccino.
Yeah, this is the thing that's we're dealing with the internet. We're dealing with this kind of stuff that's just plain
Yeah.
wrong. People are reading this and then they're telling somebody else this, and then
Yeah.
it just snowballs. And so we
I
gotta
think
put a
this
stop.
just goes back to the thrill of the chase, right? Everybody wants to be the source for the best, most recent knowledge, right? And so a lot of people are just kind of firing in the dark without doing either the best research that they can, or doing direct breedings to make direct observations and then outcrossing in order to be able to provide a really in-depth information.
This person was doing caps when they were hot, and now they're not. So and it's just been left on there. It's not something that they've even updated. I think in a couple of years. So that's my only point. Was
Yeah.
not to call somebody out.
I mean, I haven't even updated the Cappuccino article because I'm
Yeah,
writing
that's
the book right now.
That's definitely
So-
wrong. Could you get that, Harry? That polydactyl stuff? Maybe
Oh,
we can
yeah,
cover
yeah,
that
yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's land it with
Did you
polys.
Did you get that video?
You
No,
didn't
The video
send
didn't
you
come
sent it to me
through.
on Instagram. Let me check real quick.
Instagram under
Okay, give me a second.
your name, not the episode.
Okay. Where's Don?
I think we can cover this in less than 5 minutes. I know everybody's probably getting tired.
I don't see a video. Where'd you send it to, Don? On Instagram?
Harry on Instagram.
Harry? Zero's Geckos?
It said Harry's. Harry, I think.
A random Harry got this
I think
video.
you sent it to the wrong
How many
guy.
people do you think are named Harry?
No, send it to our group chat episode, the pod with Don and LM. Do that.
This is random Harry.
I sent it to Harry. Which Harry?
Harry Potter.
Shoot.
Who is it, Harry?
Today. It's crazy. Drive me crazy.
I don't know. Harry. It says Harry and it's got your logo.
Zeros? My Zeros Geckos?
It says here. Yeah, it went there.
By far the coolest whitetail buck I've ever.
Okay, wait. I can just do it.
Oh, I
this
see
way.
it. I see it. Don, I see it. Sorry.
See?
Okay, let me pull it up. My bad.
Harry's navigation is just.
This is just something that I was talking in the chat room about this, and it's nothing that I'm not pro polydactyl, but I find this stuff interesting. I always like to ask the questions, and so I happen to. This guy's a trapper, and
Are you guys see this?
Not yet.
No,
Oh, hold on. Let me.
I can play it right on here.
Okay, I got it. Oh, geez.
He's got it.
Oh, there it is.
Are you ready?
I asked this guy for permission to use
Oh.
this video.
Right.
So,
Okay, let me play it for us. Tell me if you hear the audio.
By far the coolest
Yep.
whitetail buck I've
Yep.
ever worked on, and not because it's got a massive rack for New England, but because it has canine. Look at these. This is a trait that's only found in about 1% of deer, and it's even more rare here in the Northeast. Most deer have just a hard palate on top. That means that they don't have those teeth. But this is a leftover trait from back when they had to have fangs to protect themselves from predators and to help with breeding. So again, not just because this thing's an absolute slammer, but that's got to be the coolest trait I've ever seen in a white-tailed deer.
okay.
What is that called?
So-
Evolutionary throwback.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about polydactyls, and we were talking about this before, and I happened to see that video, and I was like, you know what? This may not just be a mutation; it may actually be something that they've evolved, and they didn't have it when they have, as animals evolve. If there's no use for it, they lose it. You don't use it, you lose it. So it may have been a tactic. Maybe the trees were at that time were less rough, more smooth in nature, or maybe it was for breeding or whatever. So it could be something that is actually left over and is popping up every once in a while, and it may not actually be genetic.
Genetic thing.
So when people are saying, when people put pictures up about, when people put pictures up of a polydactyl toe and people say it's a pet only, don't breed it, blah, blah, blah. We don't even know. This is one that I produced. I don't produce many of them. I think this is only the second or third one that I've ever found. And I didn't even realize it when I put a picture up. But it's actually a really cool gecko, and it drew my interest to something that I wanted to work with. But if people don't know what they are, they're just an extra toe on there.
Yeah.
And it could be a
On the back
throwback
side.
where it just lost.
Or an incubation issue. I mean, for
We
my
know-
stuff. for
I
what we
think
put in
I
the
think
book
it's
is that
anomalies.
Yeah.
I don't think it's genetic.
We
From my
seen it
experience.
occur in an incubation issue where we had like the air conditioner go out and the
Mhm.
temps in the room got really hot, like up into the 90s, and that was the only time we've ever seen polys pop out.
Mm.
Now we've
So-
tried to breed polys to see if it was a gene back in the day, never produced as a gene. We know also that there are breeders in the community that have correlated it to being a gene, and they've traced it back to animals. And those animals, I went to the original breeder who had those animals, and they've bred those animals together and have never produced polys either. So whether it's a gene or not is, for me right now, I see it as not a gene. I see it as either an evolutionary throwback or an incubation issue or something that causes the gene that's there to be expressed.
Or even
'Cause even
just a
humans
minor
have
deformity
genes.
too. Could be
Yeah, even
deformity.
humans have genes for 6 fingers on their hands.
Yeah.
and that happens. And we have genes for having a tail as well, and that happens in humans, and they're surgically removed at birth. We have genes for having facial hair, like literally completely covered in facial hair, right?
Wolfman.
Yeah.
And so whether those genes are traits or not that can be bred is a totally different thing. Now, we've tried to breed polydactyls together to see if we produced any polys from them, and no, it's never happened. And the animals that produce the polys in our collection during that time, we've kept together to continue to breed for over like 9+ generations, and it's only ever happened that one time. So currently, for what we have here in our collection, we have not been able to produce polys as a genetic mutation that can be passed on hereditably.
I've just had, in my experiences, I've produced a handful over the years, and all of them came out of pairings, like where I got, say I've produced 100 offspring out of a pairing, and I've made 1 in 100 out of 1 in 100 on a few different occasions out of pairings that were like legacy pairings that were bred together a long time. So if it was from a genetic component, you wouldn't see 1 in 100 odds.
No.
There's
So then why are we chastising people for or something?
Lack
Grandstanding is my approach.
Of
Ignorance.
Ignorance, Don, right? Is it
ignorance, Don? We just talked about that. Yeah. I've only ever made 1 poly out of hundreds of animals that I've bred, and yeah, it's just it's an anomaly.
I would say I would agree that if it's not a gecko that has other things going for it, in other words, something that you would normally hold back and breed to improve your line, then I understand why you should pass over it. But my only question is the way that some of these people are coming off with, like, as if it has 3 heads and a horn. That gecko that I showed you, that gecko interests me, and I'm going to tell people, if they want to unfollow me because I'm going to breed a polydactyl, then that's fine, because it's worth it. And I don't. These are bad pictures, but it's a really interesting gecko, and I'm not going to pass it over because it's got. And the only other reason that I heard people say is, well, they'll have shedding issues. Well, I don't see that. It's just like that boba line. It could, if it's too big and too much of a problem, it might have. But
it looks like a skin tag.
It does. That one really does.
Well, and if it has a shed problem, its little toe will fall off.
Yeah, exactly. Problem fixed.
We've seen polys from other people online that have like full-on toes with nails and everything in them.
Yeah.
I told Don before he came on, Anthony, but I actually found a gecko the other day that actually has another foot coming out of the top of its foot.
You have to send me a picture.
I'll send you a picture. It's wild.
Amazing.
I gotta save it for your October oddities.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like, you guys have to understand, like, I love stuff like this. If anybody's out there listening and you guys have like weird, crazy anomalies, send them to me. I've got a 5-footed That's
gecko.
Awesome.
I have
Shoots and ladders. That's what we're gonna categorize it under. Thrill of the chase.
I had one that was conjoined twins at the shoulders, and it had its heartbeat. It had its heart born outside its body. So you could actually sit there, and it was alive, and it was doing fine. I mean, not like
you know what's crazy? I've never had twins.
I had twins out of the same
I've
man.
had twins. I've had twins.
Breeding, guys, I've never had twins ever.
I had one this season.
Conjoined twins?
Yeah.
Never. I've never had any types of twins at all.
Wow.
Even eggs. We'll cut eggs open that fail. I've never had twins, not one time.
I had like 4 twins last year.
Dude, I don't know where you guys are getting these things from, but I'm dying to produce one. When I found out there's other breeders out there that are making them like multiple in a year, I'm like, how?
All of mine come from Don's caps bred to lily white.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that actually makes sense now.
We are super fertile.
We are super fertile.
Oh, we should do an October oddities episode, and then people can just
Ooh,
send in like all
send
the
in
Yeah.
weird
weird
stuff,
stuff.
and then we'll just go through it.
Oh my,
Yeah,
yeah!
that'd
If
be
you guys
awesome.
don't know what October oddities
They know.
are,
We
then
know.
go to the. It's Jessica's thing. She does October oddities, and she just
Let's do it,
loves
Jess. Yeah,
Let's do it.
let's do it.
That'd be neat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we
good.
could do a bunch of submissions on the Discord.
Yes, that'd be fun.
We'll get it done. Cool. Any other things to this has got to be our longest episode. Like we beat every other episode. So we're almost
Don
3
turned
hours.
down episode 3.
Sorry, I like to talk.
No, that's fine, Don. We love
Hey,
it.
we've got 10 minutes left. Do we want to cross 3 hours or not?
We
Let's
got to
do it.
do. This
Let's
is a
go.
pop
Oh
feed,
my
AJ.
god! Is it really 3 hours now?
Yeah, almost.
Where?
250.
What did you say?
250.
Don, we're gonna do episode 3 on something special. We don't have to do right away. We could do
He
it
says
later.
no. Yeah, because we're gonna wear the overalls, so you got to show.
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, give it
Yeah,
a few
we'll
months,
do
Don.
that.
We'll see. We'll see.
Don, we'll have you back on in a few months. Not right away.
There's
When it
no
makes
we'll
sense.
see, Don. We're gonna do it.
I got a lot of feedback from people too that wrote me, and
That's good.
I was okay, and so I was.
Yeah, this is great. We're the global team now. We're bridging Korea and US, and
I told you guys before how we should do a live like that. So
Yeah,
maybe one day.
that'd be cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Good
dying to
idea.
do lives.
People asking Koreans breeders questions, and they asking the U.S. breeders questions. I think that'd be cool.
That would be fun.
Would be cool. Cool. You guys want to
Alright.
cover anything else before we land it, or you want to? Are we trying to hit 3 hours, AJ?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm up
if
for
you
it.
look
Just
at
give us
the-
another
let's-
topic.
Let's keep it light. What do we? We'll finish off in 9 minutes. What are we talking about? Let's talk
I'll
about
tell you-
something fun.
I would tell you that last picture though. I wanted to show.
Okay. Yes.
I made it yesterday, so I want to show it. I spent the time.
Where
on
is it? Over here.
Yeah, so I know a lot of guys when they talk to you guys, and I see you talking, what should I buy first? I'm just getting started. What should I
Yeah.
do? How should I do it? And you're talking about, don't buy better geckos, buy the best geckos you can afford, and all that stuff. I just want to make a point to the new guys. So when you're breeding, I approach it a little different. So when I'm breeding crested geckos, I want the most patterns and colors on my palette as I can possibly have. So I just use this as an example, but the more choices that you have at your disposal, the more varied your offspring are going to be. So my recommendation is, yes, buy the best you can buy of each of a specific morph, but have a pixel in your stable, have a sable in your stable, hey, tiger in your stable, a cappuccino in your stable. Probably the two most important that you should start out with, in my opinion, as far as actual genes, is the lily white, which should be number 1, and the cappuccino and/or sable. I think those two, coupled with all the other phenotypes that are going to be easily available to you, is going to provide you with a palette that you can really just be very creative and produce some crazy stuff. And so I just wanted to put that out to the new guys. My recommendation is don't single on one thing. Have your stable as full of a variety of animals as you possibly can have. And pay attention to the structure and make sure you're getting good solid animals from a good reputable breeder. I don't know about the lineage. You don't have to have pictures of the parents and all that other stuff necessarily, unless that's your thing. But just variety is the spice of life.
I think so too, especially in like the modern day of crested geckos. Like people want everything that's on that list. I get asked for everything that's on that. Yeah.
And the more you have on your table or on your list, the more chances you have to sell something too, because not everybody wants the same thing.
Yeah, especially if you can do them in a quality way. I think if it's, a common thing, and I'm sure you see this too, Don, and Harry and I talk about it all the time. We see this on Palm Street all the time, is that when people first start, they're just like, give me one of this, one of that, one of that, one of that. And they're just kind of like collecting, it's the whole Pokemon catch 'em all thing. Like I want one of every single thing. And I think often you get, when you're early on, you get the blinders on and you just want to check the box I have a tiger, I have a cap, I have a Dalmatian, I have a pinstripe. And I think that can be cool because it can help you figure out what you like, but also it can be harmful because you can kind of get into the weeds where then you have no direction on what you're doing too. So finding like, I think having like key animals in multiple different buckets is good. Like you're saying.
I want that, but I understand what you're saying too. But I don't like to stay focused. I like to stumble around until I hit something. And,
Yeah, there's nothing
fair.
wrong with it. I think as long as you're doing it with quality animals is good.
yeah, that's the key. So you take your deal about, you know, buy the best you can of the best quality from a reputable breeder, and you
But then
marry that
spread
with
it out.
mine. And we have a marriage that's going to last a long time.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, that's a lot of.
I've been married for
Oh,
45 years, so I know something about marriage.
Okay, Anthony and Jess, how long have you been married?
Almost 15 years.
Oh, that's a long
Wow.
time.
Anybody longer?
Not than you.
I think I'm 16 or so.
15 plus
I'm 10.
AJ?
10 years.
10, 25,
I think I'm 17 years.
17? Okay, I beat all three put together.
Don, we're the age of your kids, so
That's funny.
we are your kids, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's so
no sucks.
funny. So Don, you've got, what's your next big show you're going to out there?
My son's doing Busan. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do the next show till April, I think.
Is that
I am
far
working-
south? Is that where that is?
Yeah, it's not called End of Land because that's actually the way that it's shaped, but it's about a 5.5, 6 hour drive.
Okay.
So
Is that a big show or is it a relatively small show?
good size show? Yeah, it's a nice size. It's from a promoter that does shows all over Korea, so he has one almost every week in different locations.
Wow.
But Busan's a big city, and I know last time we went down there, we had a really great show. We had like 6 tables, maybe, I think.
Do you know how many people, like, say that show or the big show in August, how many people come through the door?
30, 40,000 maybe.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's like Tinley level, but the room is a lot smaller.
Who was that I saw a video of? Maybe Yeti Gex? I love her, man. I love watching her. She's so upbeat. Is it Yeti Gex?
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
yeah.
She was right next to me at Tinley. She was like
Was she?
5
I don't know if it
feet
was
to my right.
her or somebody was showing a show last weekend or the week. I think it was last weekend. And it was like a ghost town compared to Korea. I mean, Korea is like, oh my God, I got to go to the bathroom. And it's like you got to leave 5 minutes early to get to the bathroom because you got to weave yourself through.
Yeah,
the
totally different.
That's crazy.
Well, the U.S. has a ton of shows like spread all throughout. Some are
There's like
unnecessary.
20 shows a weekend.
Yeah, it's
Feels
just
like
it's
They have,
just
they have a lot of shows here, but I mean, there's some smaller ones and some bigger ones. So you have to come out.
Yeah, we will see them. I think that's the big difference is that the concentration of, say, gecko people in a given area is just so much smaller. Like if I think about the area I live in is whatever 2 million people, but you put a reptile show on here, you might get 1,000 people that come to it.
Yeah, but if you took all the reptile shows and you put them in one spot along with all the enthusiasts, you'd out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 60 times the land mass
Spread
in
out.
Korea. So.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, well, if you guys want to close it out, we're gonna hit 3 hours.
We're pretty close. You only got to buy us another minute, Harry.
1 minute.
This is like when I'm on Palm Street and it's like 2 a.m. and people are like, it's like 1:55 and people are like, you got to go to 2.
10 more
What if you're
minutes.
Wait a minute. 1 minute.
Yeah,
There's
1
some
minute.
guitars behind you. Let's hear AJ.
No, don't do that to me.
Play us a
Don't do
song,
it to
man.
me. They're not in tune. Hey, I'll do it for you next time on the next episode, Don.
Oh, in our dickies. Yeah, in our overall.
I'll wear my dickies and I'll play you a little. I'll play you a couple riffs. You tell me one. You tell me one to learn and I'll play it for you.
Are you good? Or are you just?
I'm all right.
You're all right. I'm not musically inclined. I wish I was.
Yeah, I
Okay,
should be
next time.
I should be better than I am. I'll say that.
Yeah. You're just too busy doing geckos, I guess.
I know. That's exactly what it is.
Sweet.
All right.
We want to close it out. We'll hit 3 hours.
We'll
once we
close it out, and then we'll do our
intro.
Yeah, we'll do our intro scene. So
Jess,
hang
Jess
out for one more minute after we
one.
close. Anthony and Jess, thank you guys for being here, for being the glue to bring this, make this possible. So we appreciate you. Well, we need to do more chat soon, by the way. We need a morph chat soon with you guys. So we'll talk to you guys about that.
I can think of a few morphs.
Yeah, and then and Don, as usual, we got to have you back. You know, it doesn't have to be super quick, but you know, we'd love to have you back. The chat is always a fun time, and we all of us are benefiting from kind of the wisdom and knowledge that you impart. So appreciate you. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you guys for listening. This is the longest episode we've ever recorded in the 2.5 years we've had a Gecko Pod, and it was a good one. I didn't fall asleep at all. So
that's good. Harry's
got that going for us.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you all. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you.
And the next one.
Bye.